Hello, everyone. Welcome to a hotly anticipated episode of By the Numbers. Thorin, as always, joining me currently in lockdown in his hotel. We're not going to get into that. There's bigger fish to fry for the moment.
Future episodes, don't worry.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, there will. Sam Bainlaw Davis producing, pressing the buttons. Well done, mate. And you even worked in a reference to Cyberpunk that's going to be out in a few hours. Maybe there'll still be a CS scene by the time the game comes out. We'll find the fuck out. First, shout out to the sponsors who've been dragged into this insane war between almost every CS party while Valve is just off on its fucking backpacking year around Europe or something, right? So shout out to NordVPN, proud sponsors of my channel. Go to ! NordVPN to find out more, but basically they're having a Black Friday sale, 68% off across 4 months. It's great. So go to nordvpn.com/RLS. I recommend you get a VPN. Times are getting crazy, and obviously .com, my longest standing sponsor on this channel. If you want to place a bet on an esports event and you want to do it in a safe, ethical environment, you go to .com. That's why I work with them. Fully licensed. They're the business. So, as many of you will know, I had an impromptu stream last night because I'm fucking sick of it. I am sick of it. And Duncan's right there with me, I know, because we've talked before the show. And basically, we've got so many things going on in Counter-Strike right now, so many things in the esports side of things, that it's really hard to sort of reconcile where we're at. And by that, I mean, the game is the most popular it's ever been. It's the #1 game on Steam. We've just had an operation released. We're getting new players coming in. But our esports side of things looks really bad. Like, there are so many issues. There are so many stakeholders at war with each other. No one cooperating for the good of the scene. And basically, Valve, the kind of one party that could unify it all, has no interest in doing so because they find the experimental aspect to what they do, the data that comes out of such conflict, to be worth more than the scene itself. I find it ridiculous that we're here in 2020 and they've got a fucking 1 million follower account that's on the day an operation is released is interacting with meme accounts. It's never addressed the CSPPA. It's never addressed ESIC. It's never even tweeted out about big leagues making big announcements, big moves, team games, but they've got time to meme and fuck around, and it's embarrassing now. I have been one of the biggest defenders of Valve and their laissez-faire approach to CS esports, but enough's enough. Dota has a ton of problems, and it's constantly propped up by a development team that clearly love that game. What do we have? Edo and Brian at Valve, and if those guys go, we're done. I don't even think they'll give a fuck anymore about this game. And when I think about how for 20 years in various instances it's volunteers essentially that have built this scene to get it to where it is now with little respect or help from Valve, I find it repellent that now we could be the #1 FPS esport in the world. We could be the #1 esport in the world. We could grow. We got the player numbers to do it. And instead, it looks like Valve are actually going to do so little, we're going to lose out to Valorant next year. So that's where my head is at coming into this episode, and we're going to get into the specifics. But I'll just start by asking you if you sort of share any of those views, Duncan.
Oh, we could start with Valve. Anyone could fucking get it on this episode. So starting with Valve as the game developer, people think I exclude Valve when I make those rants about game devs, where obviously the real offenders that are obvious because it's been outed is Blizzard and Riot Games, because those companies are so insane with how they enforce their IP rights. Like, they know that they're essentially a god within the universe of their game, and they just let you know at every fucking moment of the day. Like, they're the Old Testament gods who are making you sacrifice your children and fucking the virgins and the tributes to them every day, just so you remember that they created the universe and have all power. The difference with like Valve is Valve try to pretend more like, oh, we're like a sort of cool devs who sort of get it, that you guys are a bit different, you know. It reminds me of DreamHack, where you get this awesome vibe right until the money hits, and then all of a sudden they're as ruthless as every other cunt in the whole industry. Sometimes worse, because you don't expect it from people who seemed cooler. And the problem I have with Valve basically is they absolutely, I'm glad you told that story about the fucking iBuyPower guys, because people think I'm exaggerating the stories about when I tried to appeal to them that they should unban the Titan players from playing in a major that only one of them cheated in and the others knew nothing about. And they basically were like, not just like against the idea, they were disrespectful in how they did it. Like they didn't seem to even appreciate what a pro is, what a pro does to become a pro. And they treated it like you were just a little kid. And it's like, well, you all must have been in on it. So everyone bend over, like when I was a fucking kid, where if one of you misbehaved, you all got fucking thrashed.
You all got the belt.
On some like fucking like private pile shit where the idea was you had to all keep each other in line so that guy's fucking dad, who isn't your dad, comes home and fucking batters all of you. And you know what? You just took it on the chin back then. You thought that's what life was. So basically, Valve, if anyone ever saw this classic interaction between Mark Merrill, that's right, one of the fucking Riot Games head people is so fucking stupid that after already making the millions and getting away with it, he's still slapping his dick in people's faces on Twitter. Only something like a year ago, I think it was last year or this year, when I Will Dominate, it was obviously a colleague of mine where I do the Crackdown, a League of Legends talk show, one of the biggest streamers in the world. By the way, himself a bona fide millionaire, doesn't need fucking shit from any of you little rats out there. He doesn't have to explain something to you for drama or whatever. He's a made man. Because he's a G, he actually comes out and sometimes reveals some of this stuff. And basically, he was having a back and forth with Mark Merrill on Twitter from Riot Games. And Mark Merrill had the temerity to actually post to a guy who, by the way, was a League of Legends pro for something like 5 years, then's been like a streamer, someone who to this day co-streams, promotes their brand massively, makes it palatable to an audience who don't want to listen to Babby's first esports cast with Freak. So when this guy does all of that, Mark Merrill had the temerity to say to him on Twitter something like, congrats for having a career built around a game I made. It's like that exact, he encapsulated it perfectly, Richard. That mentality is what nearly all of the game devs have. And if they don't, the rare few that don't are like the good Reddit moderators. First of all, you're only that good, mate, because you allow all the cunts to do all their shit. And then secondly, you're going to be pushed out inevitably. And that is always the way it goes with any little group of people. The worst elements, unless you all agree to like a zero tolerance aspect in terms of integrity, the worst elements just get their way in there, push their way through, and eventually it's their will that gets enacted. Even if, and this is the other sad part, there's always a cool guy that is there as the fucking patsy who doesn't know he's the patsy. And he goes out, in the case of CSPPA, that's why it's the players doing the arguing on Twitter. It's not a fucking guy from Denmark who's a FIFA manager. It's some cunt like you love, like Chris J or NBK. They're the ones out there stupidly thinking that, like, I'm going to proselytize the good of it all. And it's like they use these people so that the company fucks behind who decide and do everything get to have a nice face for what they're doing. It's like politics all over again, but in esports now. So I'm not letting the game dev get away with this. Like that story you told about iBuyPower, where effectively they had the goal to turn around to you. By the way, the only person who provided them the evidence from which they banned those players, the person who did their jobs for them, they turned around to you and told you, like, how dare you make us feel bad? It's like, just the level of fucking ego is unbelievable. Like, I'll give them all the credit in the world for making the game. Without the game, we're not working in this game. We're not working in this exact scene. Maybe it's not as big. But I tell you what, that has fuck all to do with the labor of people like me, you, the players themselves. Like, we made Counter-Strike. You made Counter-Strike the game. We made Counter-Strike the esport. You'd have fucking nothing. You wouldn't even have esports if it wasn't for people on their own back doing all the lands. That's where the entire circuit came from before these cunts took over, like Riot Games, just taking everything back for themselves. Like, there wouldn't even be something that a moron in a marketing department would even go, how could we cynically spin this as some sort of adjunct to making money off the game, but pretend we're doing it as a favor to them? There wouldn't even be a guy doing that because he'd get kicked out of the fucking meeting because it would be such a mad idea that anyone would have a party where you'd be invited and you'd pay to play in the tournament and then someone would sponsor that shit. Literally, you had to have like 20 years of esports before you could even have these cretins get it in their mind there was money to be made. They had to be shown all the way through. You know how many majors I went to in CS where Valve weren't even aware they were going on and never even put a post on their website? Like, I'm talking like 10 plus years here, guys. And then I've told this story before, but I'll wrap with this. There's a story of where Gabe Newell came to an IEM at CBIT. I think it was the 2011 one where it was when they were on the brink of winning their fourth major. Gabe Newell's there, right? Everyone's thinking, hey, Gabe N, all the memes about Gabe N must like Counter-Strike. They asked Gabe N, oh, what do you think of Na'Vi, who at the time, as I say, they've won 3 majors in a row, greatest year ever in Counter-Strike. They go to their 4th major. And Gabe Newell Gabe literally Newell, whatever. That can be a new thing. Gabe Newell, because he is literally Gabe Newell, he just comes out there, right? And instead of just thinking for a minute or just being straight up and going, you know what? Listen, guys, I'm more of a daughter guy. Or, you know what? I just made Valve the company. Like, I'm here as a representative, but, I don't follow Counter-Strike that much. He tried to basically spin it like he knew his arse from his fucking head. And what he said was, he goes, I'd just love to know, how many people do you think we'd have to put into a server before one of them could kill them, though? As though he thought they were like John Wick and you had to send like 100 noobs at any Na'Vi player to possibly even chink the armor or get like a drop of blood. Like, it's Counter-Strike, you daft cunt. The whole principle of why the game ever became popular is because when you play me in Quake, I will beat you 30 to -1. When you play me in Counter-Strike, if you're just behind me, you shoot me in the head with one bullet and I'm dead. That's the entire gimmick of Counter-Strike. And in 2011, something like 12 years after this game came out, by the way, about 9.5 after his company got involved with it, that after all that time, he hasn't even learned what the basics of the game are. He's never even logged into an Aztec game and gone, fuck, I just got shot in the side of the head. What was that? He's never even done that. And he has had the gall to like talk as though like, I wonder what we're doing. Like trying to give some deep thoughts or something like, fuck you. I've made you enough money.
I mean, look, the problem I've got right now is like just overall is like, you know, they don't seem to understand the ecosystem that exists around their game, and I think that's criminal at this stage because they're happy to interface with it when it makes them money, right? Like, I mean, you know, so it's like at least try and understand it, but they don't. They for example, this is a little quirk of Valve's thinking, their philosophy. They don't like team organizations. They never have. They don't like them in Dota, but they accept them as a necessary evil. But they really don't like them in Counter-Strike. They, for example, were a little bit surprised when they found out that the sticker logo money was going to them, going to the orgs that own the brands. They were like, wait, what? We put this in for the players. And it's like, well, it's our intellectual property. And Valve's belief was, yeah, but it's the players that make your org popular in the first place. And they're going, well, no, we're thinking of this in like a team, you know, kind of philosophy. We build up a team and great players down the ages will play for it. But they didn't like it at all. And that's why they pivoted and put the signatures in. And sort of now you have a situation where your logo is being sold and you give a fraction of that to the players. And the expectation is that the signatures go all to the players. In fact, Valve have even waxed lyrical behind the scenes about what a world... They love the idea of player-owned organizations.
Yes.
They'd love to cut the fucking, you know, the Cloud9s and the Team Liquids and the Evil Geniuses. They'd love to cut them out of the ecosystem entirely, which, by the way, absolute disaster.
Oh, it'd be terrible. Those are the only competent businessmen in our space. The joke is this. These guys are such miracle workers. They can get $25,000 a month to pay a guy that might make them like $4,000 a month for the same fucking job. Like, these, unless you guys really believe there are trees that money grow from that they have in their backyard, how are they doing it? Because that's what next level businessmen they are, because they're selling a dream. By the way, that dream doesn't come when you install Counter-Strike. It is like I was referring to before about the people who built this industry. This is like something where it's passion mixed with mastery. And then you need the game to start with, but saying that like the game's everything would be like saying that like the best fucking stunt driver in the world should give 90% of his salary to whoever made the fucking car. Of course not, you daft cunt. It was him being an amazing driver. And the reason why I know what you're saying is correct as well, by the way, is there's another part people have never understood, because I've tried to explain this in the context of media that I've actually nailed where I think all the mainstream media go wrong when they first encounter esports. And it goes like this. They always treat it like a movie that you wrote. It's a classic from the 80s called The Wizard. It's the movie where that power glove comes from and everyone says he looks like Fatality, the bad guy. It's basically a movie where, as a fucking marketing scheme from Super Mario 3, I think it is, they made a movie where whoever that fucking cunt is from, like, wasn't it the one out like what's the fucking show that was in the 90s where it was like narrator, like when I was a teenager, my life used to be
Wonder
like that.
Years.
There we go. It was the young guy out of that. I'm pretty sure is
Fred
the older
Savage.
brother in this. It wasn't either one in this movie. I'm thinking.
No, I don't. Yeah, it was actually. Yeah, you're right. Mate, obviously, I haven't watched The Wizard since I watched The fucking Wizard. You know what I mean?
Listen, a lot of us haven't. But basically, the point is, basically, in this movie, you have this kid who, by the way, they just didn't have the terminology. He's clearly mad autistic. And this kid is just all he can do in his life because his family's going through a breakup. It's just play Super Mario. I think it's the first one or the second one, Super Mario 1 or 2. And basically, because he's playing this game, his brother, as a way to connect with him and deal with their issues, realizes like, oh, there's a world championship coming up for Super Mario. So they set off on this trek, you know, it's a little hero's journey to go and compete in this tournament. And basically, the way that works is like, it's like a tournament. All the people from around the world are coming in, you know, they're playing, and you just come in and it's like, you know, you just register and you start playing the tournament. At the end, someone's going to be crowned the winner, right? I've realized that's what media think esports is in 2020. Like, that's why they can't differentiate between why FIFA isn't a big esport, but Counter-Strike is, yet, you know, the numbers of games sold of FIFA's way more. It's like, they can't get that, like, FIFA on some level has those enormous qualifiers, like that fucking stupid thing with Fortnite where everyone in the world was allowed to qualify to the World Championship potentially just by playing an online qualifier. Like, they don't get that. Like, Counter-Strike is like tennis. It's like, we've got a circuit, we've got invites that you get based on your world ranking. Like, you don't like, Nico doesn't have to go and qualify against me and you in a basic pog to get into the next Blast League. He's already in because he's a pro. Yeah. So what they don't get is the circuit. Well, the crazy thing I've realized now, Richard, is Valve themselves either don't get it or don't want the circuit. Because everything you're talking about is the circuit. It's the rest of the community. What they want is some mad logic like that, where a world championship is every shitter with a copy of Counter-Strike signs up to something online, plays an online qualifier, and at the end of it, they really believe, because they know so little about esports, that 5 random players none of us have ever heard of from fucking Timbuktu are going to qualify over like G2 esports. And that would even be fair if they played a random 1 best of 1 game in a massive 10,000 team bracket. Like, that's almost a fucked world that they think would be good. Whereas everything I enjoy about esports comes from the community. The game was the foundation, but it's what we built on top of that allows these players to be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like, I get it. I think it's great. Valve, I remember as well. I don't know if I ever told this story. I remember when we had discussions around Eleague, and I'd literally been brought into the room because I was being pitched as the fucking host, right? Like, now, it wasn't a guarantee I was going to get it, and there may have been some incidents that occurred after I was touted as being the host that might have potentially damaged my career. Thanks, DreamHack.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks, DreamHack. But at the end of the day, I got the gig. But I remember being in the room, and it was all the team owners, and it was people from Turner Sports, and Valve were there, and we were talking about what Eleague was going to look like as a broadcast and who it would serve and stuff like this. And, you know, it was, first of all, I mean, there was like some TV executive came in. He was a nice guy. He was a dyed-in-the-wool journalist from back in the day, a former war correspondent turned executive.
He's going to say some hilarious shit now, isn't he?
Yeah, well, that was like what Turner Sports was like. You know, they generally keep their people. And, you know, even at the end of my career, they were like, you know, they wanted to re-sign me for 2 years. And they said, no matter what happens, you've got a home here. We'll put you on mainstream sports if you want. But I couldn't hack the pressure of working for a big TV company where one tweet just ends your life. Like, I'm not gonna do that. So anyway, the executive said, we've got a wicked idea for what we're going to do in screen, and basically showed off like some mad designed, like the fucking Iron Man suit.
Oh, I remember this thing now. Yeah, this was wasn't this the thing that like Jason Lake was going off about?
Jason Lake went absolutely mental. Jason Lake literally like looked at everyone in the room and said, am I going to have to say it? And said, if you think you're coming in here just because you're a TV company and you're going to fucking wreck Counter-Strike and turn it into a fucking joke, he's like, this is a serious sport to us. It's not a fucking gimmick to make money. Oh, he went mental. Like, so he nearly. So it was already tense times. It was already tense times. And then another executive piped up and said, well, we've got agreements with the teams. And I said, no disrespect to my colleagues here, all the team owners. I said, but if you've got an agreement with them, you might want to talk to some of the players about it, because, you know, moving forward, maybe it's suboptimal that the stakeholders in your league are just those guys and not the players that have earned the slots. And
this was also when you were actually trying to set up the original player union, right?
Yeah.
It's the same time frame.
And at this time, I was trying to make my own player union, which like working title was like the EPA or something, which of course is the Environmental Protection Agency. So it wouldn't have stuck with that. But I had some like conceptual logos made. It was going to be like Devil Walk and Warden were going to be the head of Europe and the head of NA because they were retired players at that point. And I don't think you can have active players on a board. Shout out to the CSPPA we're finding out again. So anyway, I was going to build this union, and so Valve knew. I told Valve about that, and I told the team owners about it, and I told that's what I'm working on right now. And they said, "What? Don't you want to be like?" And I said, "So I don't really have a dog in the fight. I just want it to be done right." And he went, "You do know you're auditioning for a job on telly right now, don't you?" And I went, "Am I?" And he went, "So what the fuck do you mean you don't have a dog in the fight?" I'm like, I'll walk out of here and not have the job, mate. Just don't fuck up my game." So Valve sort of came up to me and went, "You're killing it in there, Richard. Stick it to them." And it didn't mean the executives. They obviously meant the fucking owners.
Right.
Like, they wanted me to keep them honest. They were going, "You have to be the advocate for the player voice." So just to let you know, even though what we were building really didn't need a voice for the players, that was a priority to Valve. That's one of the things I've always loved about Valve. But now we're in a place where look what is happening with all these different stakeholders, and you fucking run away and you're nowhere to be seen right now. I never thought I would say it, we need a daddy sort of come in and lay down the fucking law because the kids can't play nice. I said it last night. If you leave the kids in the sandpit thinking they're going to socialize by themselves, and every fucking week a kid is doming another kid with a Tonka truck, it's the parents have to get involved, the teachers have to get involved. And right now, that's what we've got. We got ESL trying to dominate the scene through dark arts. We got startup leagues that can't make any fucking money despite promising better deals. We got a fucking overworked association that's the only legislative body that can investigate all of the wrongdoing. They're the only...
means ESIC there, not CSPPA, in case anyone didn't follow.
And that's what I mean with ESIC. And 50% of the operators in our space think ESIC are ESL spies and don't want to cooperate with them. And now the CSPPA is banging on ESIC, a natural ally, you would think, somebody who's going to stop players cheating against other players, which is probably the most important thing a players association could do, right? But no, and now the CSPPA are attacking leagues that just so happen to be the leagues that don't pay the money, like a mafia shakedown. It's a mess. It's a fucking mess. And unfortunately for once, Valve, you are going to have to come in and clean up the mess, because if you're relying on people like me and Dunk, we're sick of it now. We're sick of it. And what do we get for it? We get fuck all. We do this for the love of the game. 4,000 fucking 500 people watching a podcast. I'll take or leave that. There's no real money in that. There's no real skin in the game for that. Me and Duncan do it because we love Counter-Strike. How much longer can we run on those fucking fumes when it's so rotten to work in right now at every level? I even left out, your broadcast talent. What's that? You want to work in like reasonable conditions? We'll just fucking throw you out then. You'll notice as well, as soon as any talent try and do any collective bargaining, we're all arseholes. We're all scumbags. Yep. It's a fucking mess. It's a fucking mess. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of Valve raking in piles of fucking money, pandering to the Dota community when we are their biggest game now, right? And the biggest esport, right, with the exception of the TI, right? Which, by the way, their concept of esports, TI, elephant in the room, completely fucks up everything else in their esport, and everybody knows it.
Yep.
So, like, Jesus Christ, like, can you just come in and let's just design a circuit and fix all these fucking problems? And if you're not interested in that, I don't know what CS looks like in 2021. Riot Games are watching all of this right now and fucking licking their lips and rubbing their hands like that guy behind the tree in the fucking meme. They are fucking loving this, and I know it because I talk to people. They are strategizing the success of Valorant predicated on the failures of Overwatch and Counter-Strike. And that is unequivocal fact. They're not morons. They have made the only profitable esports league out there right now, as far as I can tell, with LCS finally announcing it's going to be profitable. They've built a sustained esports product with a fantastic broadcast. Riot Games are cunts, but they might know a thing or two about what they're doing. And that should terrify you, because for the first time in our life, CS has a legitimate competitor. Such a legitimate competitor missed this out of the screed. North America have just said, well, fuck CS. We lost a continent, Valve. We've lost a continent worth of support while you're asleep, lying on your fucking pile of gold like a dragon. Will you wake the fuck up? I don't know what else to say.
By the way,
it blows my mind.
If people are thinking, like, because generally, if you talk about the whole CSGO Valorant thing, like, I've heard that, like, a lot of the salaries are overblown. It's only a few people who get the mega box. In fact, I even know CSGO pros who went from CS to Valorant and make less money. That's actually a case. But the point is this, right? I even know it's not only tier 2 that have gone. There was a massive tier 1 org in North American Counter-Strike, not 100 Thieves, obviously, because you know about that now, who wanted to sell. And by the way, the amount they were willing to sell their really good lineup for was outrageous. It's actually one of the main reasons why I personally have no hope that the Flashpoint orgs will buy quality teams. Because basically, the price you could have bought this lineup for, top 10 lineup in the world, was a steal. Like, yeah. Mate, you'd be buying individual players for like a third of this price, basically. Like, it was mental what you were being offered for. So the idea they wouldn't just showed me it's all scared money in that region. America particularly is people who aren't true believers. It's all just people. It's dogs sniffing other dogs' asses.
Yeah.
They're all just following whatever the lead dog does. And if he says to do it this way, we all do it that way. And if he goes to Valorant, we all go to Valorant. So there's not even any rhyme or reason. It's not that the market itself is fucked. And on the Valve tip, here's the problem. The reason why we normally don't say, Valve, come and save us, is because like those other game devs, we're used to how stupid they tend to actually find the solutions to the problems. Like, they really are the people who solve that, like, you know, oh, you need to put a nail in by firing a fucking ICBM at it. Like, that's usually their approach. Well, the reason why I personally never say Valve has to come in is basically because of what you said in that story about Brax. If people don't get the implication behind that, Valve were actually irritated that there was so much evidence they had to ban that team. And so that's why they banned them forever, out of spite. It was almost to say, like, it's like when a parent, you'll have had this before, maybe again in the modern generation, you won't know this, where a parent tries to ignore that you're misbehaving initially. So then when they do act, because you've really ticked them off, they go way overboard. And now they go way out of control in a way that even they, I'm sure, later would go, fucking hell, what was I doing there? But that's the point. When they have to act, they think they have to like double, triple down to make you next time think twice about it. And the reason why that pisses me off as an approach is because if people don't know, I've always said this is a very pithy way of describing it, that it's an absolute lie that iBuyPower was banned for match fixing a game. It's a lie that iBuyPower was banned for betting skins on the game as a match fix and receiving those skins. iBuyPower was banned for this one reason alone, which is that Richard Lewis managed to get the girlfriend of someone associated with the team to send him a mobile phone with text conversations with that boyfriend of hers, ex-boyfriend at the time, in which she detailed and he detailed what he was doing and implicated everyone within this match fixing scenario, which is essentially the most ironclad, smoking gun circumstantial evidence you could have had. But here's what people don't understand. Without that piece of evidence, Valve still could have tracked all the skins, literally going to their accounts. Valve could have tracked that the betting went to an insane amount, then all the money went in from a small amount of account. They could have tracked everything you needed to. And by the way, they're not even in a court of law, just by reasonable doubt to show that these people did it. But they didn't give a fuck until Richard essentially had, and this is going to be a lesson for you about how modern media works, the sexy human element hook that would get everyone interested. Because I tell you what, if you have a story that goes, meaningless CSGO match thrown by Counter-Strike pros that don't make much money, nothing sexy about that. It's never going to make anything on the AP. But I tell you what, if the story goes, scorned girlfriend outs everything about these top esports pros who were cheating and match fixing for money that they profit. Like, if you do that angle, ooh, the fucking
let me also tell people, because I know it's over 5 years since I started investigating that one aspect, and I can't believe we still talk about it like it actually fixed anything. And I see the Valorant fucking scumbags, all the match fixing cunts and snitches and arseholes that have slithered off to that game like it's fucking Brazil and they're Ronnie Biggs and they're fleeing Counter-Strikes. They don't want to have to face the consequences for their fucking actions.
Deep cut. I like it.
Nice. Fire. It's nothing but straight fire today, baby.
Okay.
So So just to remind you what happened, this is how much evidence I had. So first of all, leaked forensically verified Steam conversation where Shazam was a fucking idiot and told a journalist it was a fixed match and he was betting on it, right? And the journalist went, I don't like that. And then came to me and said, here's these Steam messages. We went in, we had a look on his Steam account. He said, no one will believe me. I'm not big enough. They'll believe you. I looked at it, saw the messages were genuine, ran that and said, this is cause for concern. That is a story in and of itself.
Yeah, for sure.
That is a story in and of itself. I got wrecked. Said there's no evidence. Shazam's a joker. He's a liar. He's clearly bantering. Right. We had the game itself, which is the most embarrassingly obvious.
Oh, the eye test is pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. Yeah.
They're all laughing while they're doing it. They're only going for collapse with the AWP and stuff like this. Right. And then people said, well, they just weren't trying, were they? Which, again, is a problem in and of itself. We had the ownership aspect of it, that it was Netcode Guides, which was owned by Dazed, right? And so there's that aspect to it. Then Shazam was then we had a fixer come out, a serial bettor from a betting circle in America called Inner Circle. It was literally called that. I've got all of their shit. There's a bunch of people that were posting on that site that were pro players that were giving information and committing ethical violations. But what's the point in putting it out? Because it's only a screenshot and all you little dickheads will say I fucking faked it for attention again. So, by the way, if you're a fucking moron like that fucking cunt for Illuminati or whatever your fucking name is on Reddit, and you're going, this just proves Richard's unethical, you're the reason I can't publish any of this. It's not me. It's not my ethical code. It's that I have learnt the hard way after pushing this up a fucking hill for 6 months, being spat on, having my fucking email hacked, being DDoSed, having my life threatened because your favourite team threw a fucking game and I'm the only cunt with a sack to fucking say in an entire scene of frauds, right? It's cunts like you that mean you'll never see those, because I realise now the evidentiary standard it has to be overwhelming or bellends like you won't believe it. So shut your fucking yap saying I lack an ethical centre when for 15, 16 years I've left more money on the table, unethical money, than you'll ever see in your shit life. So shut the fuck up. So anyway, then we had a fixer come forward. And a fixer came forward and said, yeah, I fixed all the games for them. They've been throwing a bunch of games, actually. Not just I Buy Power, but, you know, all these other people in NA, right? And then we had Shazam came out and put on the record testimony that, yes, it was a throw. Yes, he talked to people on the Discord. Yes, he bet on it. Yes, he was involved in it. None of this was not only enough for the community, it wasn't enough for Valve. This is months of stories at this point. So then I had to convince someone who ran CSGo Lounge to go into their betting history, look at every account that bet on that game in a sizable way, right? And where they were connected to, when they did it, who they talked to, who they had on their Steam friends. Without him, I don't get the forensic sort of map of where the skins flowed to. I had that. I showed that and shared that with people who needed to know privately. Still wasn't enough to trigger a ban or have anyone give a fuck. And then here's the part you all forget. D-Bone's girlfriend leaked those texts publicly. They were in the public domain for days, and you little rats and incels threatened her, said it was fake, said anyone can fake text messages, D-Bone's innocent. Like, how much fucking evidence did you need? So yeah, I confirmed it by getting the phone, checking the text, getting the dates, the times, the money amounts, linked it back to the skins I'd got, the skin map I had earlier, and then sent it all to Valve. That's what it took. And you cunts were complicit the whole time. You made it take that much. You made it so I had to fuck up my life for 6 months to get one meaningless
public
fix.
Outcry. Like, just think about even the public outcry against that Neon shit with like LCS and with LEC rather, and with Blast. If there'd have been an outcry like that, Valve would have taken action without even needing the phone. One thing they won't do is fuck up their bottom line with bad PR, mate.
Yeah, absolutely insane. And that's what it took. And then I woke up and I saw lifetime ban, which I couldn't conceive of being a punishment, because if you remember, when Dota players do it, they get a year. Not now, of course, because the die has been cast, but Solo is playing in the international. He's a millionaire.
Yep.
and he's done the same crime, actually a worse crime, than the iBuyPower guys. So once again, don't ever tell me about favoritism and Dota. It doesn't wash with me, guys. It doesn't wash. All you Dota talent and all you Dota Reddit posters. Why don't Valve like us? You're the fucking golden child and you don't even know it. Yeah. Shut the fuck up. So anyway, with all of that said and done, why are we even talking about this? Right? Because I'm saying Valve, who have proven that they're just so lackadaisical with all of this and don't care. By the way, also could have made a task force there and then. We could have caught all of the match fixes that week. I could have worked with all of them. I had a list of games, a list of bets, a list of names. I knew all the Steam accounts.
Some massive people as well. We're talking top pros. In fact, that's another angle I want to attach to now before we get into it. Because obviously, we'll go into some of the minutiae of the CSPPA things and things that have come out. But one other angle is there's another group of people who don't get to skip on this one. And you know what? It wasn't until yesterday, in the last couple of days, they even jogged our memory on this. It's the pro players. So, no, forget CSPPA, the organization. I'm talking about the pro players, some of whom, and only some, make up the CSPPA. Because some of them, by the way, aren't even in it. People from China, I think Eastern Europe, there's a bunch of regions that aren't even fucking represented. So the joke there, by the way, is what even would you do if you made another one to represent them? Would they just not be legitimate anymore? So anyway, the reason why I want to bring this up is this, because I never even put 2 and 2 together myself, Richard. I saw these as all disparate elements. So I did the same thing you did. I knew back in the day that certain people, maybe they were from Poland and France, I'll just leave it as vague as that, shall I? Definitely threw games at the time and made money off it and bet on games of other pros that they knew when they had information. And as you've pointed out in your video, literally went to these people running the shady gambling sites and told them the information they knew about them, their teammates and their pros, their fellow pros, so that those people could bet on those games. Even just talking about tips here, these people who did all that stuff in the early days, I stupidly thought, maybe like you did, well, the iBuyPower thing, that's going to put the fear of God into them. They'll all know now, even though they did do it, because we can't get Valve to ban you, you got one amnesty, and it happened on whatever it was, January the 27th of fucking 2015 or whatever it was. Yeah. Whatever date it was, there was your amnesty. Every fucking stupid cunt who cheated, match fixed, stole money, gave illegal tips, potentially violated the competitive integrity of the game knows, at least now, the fun times are over. Now you have to actually go clean. And what I've realized is this. They never did, Richard. None of them did. Overwhelmingly, these pro players have been on differing levels corrupt the entire time. Because what did they do after the match fixing was knocked on the head? Well, the ones that were actually in pro play and were getting good salaries and sticker money by now were smart enough not to match fix anymore. That was mainly kept to the Asian regions where we can't even get jurisdiction to actually punish people. Instead, what did everyone in Europe, Eastern Europe and North America do? They immediately just got straight into bed with the next bunch of cunts. The people running the dodgy skin betting websites and the people doing ones where you sell your item, but maybe they just steal all your inventory one day and just disappear overnight. And almost every single top pro I can think of either had skins lent to them by these sites, in that sense being directly implicated, or they would even, I remember classically, I'm going to call them out now, the Na'Vi players back in 2014 and 2015, every one of these cunts would have an AWP, an AK or a knife where the name of it would be the name of a dodgy betting website that I'd heard had stolen money from people, that I'd heard had defrauded people. And
Zeus owned one of them, I think. I think he owned a fucking skins casino, didn't he?
Or some of them I'd even heard, installed Trojans on your PC, all sorts of cybercrime adjacent behavior. And these players instantly got to bed with them. Because remember, and this is going to be the theme, technically it wasn't illegal, or no one had proven it was, or here's the kicker, no one was coming to check. And when no one's coming to check, you suddenly find out these are not moral people on any level. These are people who will only behave within the law when they actually think it will be enforced. Otherwise, there is no morality and integrity. Then after that, what did they do after that point in time? Then they went down this other angle where now they were making the first initial movements where they were trying to do power players against the smaller pro players, and we have to get the quality hotels, but fuck the little guys. Like every step of the way. Then you come to the modern day, right, in this online era. First of all, we find out there's a coaching bug that players and coaches have known about for over 4 years, and they never dropped a fucking word to me and Richard, whether we were having a beer, whether it was in a DM, not a word. Meanwhile, they're complaining about jokes we're making on broadcast. They're saying we're killing esports. Taz and Fallen, I'm coming for you cunts until the end of time. You better cure cancer because nothing's going to save you from this. Every single time you ever dare to pop your head above the fucking little trench that you are in right now, and you say a word about someone cheating, defrauding people, I have got a sniper rifle, metaphorically, that's going to knock your fucking helmet off, son. Get back down in that trench. You made your millions. You got away with it, you little rat. So you ever pop that head up again, I'm fucking coming for you. You know, Fallen, I come every time you come out for anyone else. I'm waiting there with the pitchfork. So basically, these same players who've treated everyone else in the industry like that to basically put me and you through the crucible every time over the minutiae of jokes and speech. By the way, as we're making an entertaining show while they dick around for 20 minutes pretending their mouse doesn't work so they can get an illegal tech timeout and just fucking talk. Or in Fallen's case, he just talks during tech timeouts, ones that you're not even allowed to talk
Who's going to stop him? Yeah.
Just do whatever you want in that scenario. So in all these situations, right, we then find out that nearly all of them on some level are complicit with their coaches cheating, either via a coaching bug. You notice to this day, not a single pro, even the pros involved with the ones who've been banned, has ever come out publicly and said, I was aware of this, I decry it and denounce it all, and this is terrible. No, it hasn't happened. It was basically, actually, by the way, the legit coaches like Yanko, who everyone made fun of, I just do coach. He's not fucking cheating, is he? Like most of your fucking heroes. People like him were the ones who were mad about it. People like Peacemaker, by the way, guys who were only going up in my estimations the more the years go by. I realised how the petty bullshit in the past was just stupid shit on Twitter. These are actually legit people, whatever you think about them. And so this is the angle I want to go with. The same pros 100%. Don't have a fucking peep to say about teams all cheating watching streams. And this is an issue that I really want to get to now because it really pisses me off. Because here's the problem, right? You know when I made that case when I was talking about Flusher and potential cheaters, and I said, as an extreme hyperbole, if I had to burn the whole scene to the ground to get rid of the cheaters, I'd do it. I'd make it a wasteland tomorrow and we'd start over. Now everyone else goes, that's that Thorin, you know, just overly married to his principles, you know, unrealistic person. Obviously, you know, he's not a guy who understands compromise and stuff. I realize now we have to do it. Because if what you said's right, if something like 10 out of the top 20 teams in the world would have to be banned for stream sniping, ban them now. Ban them immediately, not unfairly. Don't do what Valve did. Ban them appropriately based on how much they did it, what evidence you have, what tournaments they did it in, but ban them now and clean the deck. Let's go forwards without corruption. Because the idea these same pro players, the idea Hunden had the fucking gall to say that me, Flashpoint, and ESL should grow up instead of Twitter arguing. You're a fucking cheater. You were found doing it, you criminal. You should actually probably get way worse punishment than what you got. You should probably
got to keep his job. It's like, just sit this one the fuck out, mate. Just sit this one the fuck out.
But it shows you what players are like.
We had the fucking decency on this podcast, by the way, to say you've been this, like, you know, outstanding contributor, been given short shrift. We contextualized your career accurately. You're still a convicted cheater. You should have still been punished. But, you know, we had the decency to present all sides and all facets of that argument. You know what? When you've got, like, I'm so disappointed in you, Nikolai. Like, you thinking you're some sort of moral authority, mate. I've known you for years. I've known you going back to source. And you're going to come at people, like, trying to fucking do their best to, like, entertain people and do their best to run a league while there's a global pandemic going on. You're going to cast moral judgment on people from the very shaky territory of being a convicted cheater. Brother, I don't know what you must have had too many fucking vodkas that morning or something, mate, because it's so out of character and it's so ridiculous and clearly absurd. Duncan was right to fucking roast you. If he hadn't have done it, I fucking would have. It's embarrassing, mate. Simmer the fuck down, do your time, and hope that the community likes you well enough to have a redemption arc. If you think that is there's any other world where you get to be popping off at people, you're fucking mental. You're mental. You should probably be banned for longer than you were. You got a very lenient sentence. You got to keep your job. You've had no real punishment whatsoever for what you've done. And outside of installing a third-party program and cheating your tits off, you've done the next worst thing, mate. You've done the next worst thing. It's outrageous you think you get to dictate anything in the scene anymore. You're lucky we still allow you in it, you cunt. Fucking you grow up.
Because I wanted to get your take on this. You see the picture I've painted? These same players, by the way, were cool when one of them played against a team that he owned in the same match in a World Championship qualifier. No issue there. Not even getting called out for it, by the way. Other pro players didn't give a fuck. It all ties into what you were saying. So my issue is this. These pros, as far as I can tell, have an unbroken chain of tier 1 pros getting involved and in bed with every corrupt entity that will make them money that they can get involved with. So at this point, there almost has to be Valve. It has to be someone who comes in, and this is what I was referring to earlier when I was a kid, and goes fucking mental. Like, literally, I'm talking about just taking heads. Like coming in and just saying, you're banned for life, you're banned for 10 years, you're banned for 5 years, you were even involved with him, you're banned for a year. It's almost going to have to be on that level because these guys have shown consistently, unless they know a copper is outside their door ready to bust in, they'll do anything in the game that gives them an advantage or helps them get money. They have no ethical standard. And these are the same pros that we're supposed to cater to, that we're supposed to back channel with so their feelings don't get hurt when they do something wrong. It's fucking joke, mate. Like, I'm sick of the pros in this game. That's where I'm at now. It was bad enough when I used to be like all of you. I thought it was the big guy at the top who's the scumbag. Then I thought it was the next company down. The TO's the scumbag. Then I found out they make fucking no money. Then I thought it was the T-Morg. They must be exploiting everyone. Then I found out they make no money. Then I got to the base level and I was like, wait a minute, you pros are just as bad and you make all the money. What the fuck is this? And that's why it'll seem like I'm anti-player. I'm not, but I'm anti that bullshit. I'm anti the people who are the actual parasites of the scene, not for their work. Their work allows the scene to exist, but what they're doing with all the resources in the scene, now doing stuff like taking strike action against a tournament right as the match is about to happen. The most unprofessional, by definition, act you could possibly take. We're not talking about kneeling and an anthem, right, where you are allowed to do whatever the fuck you want. We're talking about refusing to play the game en masse, just having everyone there in the stadium and going, well, we're going to sit here at centre field, and until we can sort all this thing out with our culture, we're not going to start the game. Like, that would be outrageous. And by the way, even those players would never attempt that because they know their sport will be dead tomorrow. And that's what you fucking morons are going to do to this game.
Well, I mean, look, so I'll say this. I don't think it's all players. You have to understand there is a tiered system in place. And the CSPPA doesn't serve all professional players. It was never designed to serve all professional players for all of its protestations. Now, I'm sure Scoots is going to come up at some point in this. And I will just say, I believe his motives were pure when the CSPPA was founded. And all of our celebrations about finally having a professional player association in esports were well placed. But I don't know who got their hooks into all of that shit over there. And I think some people are more interested in settling old, like decade-old beefs via the conduit of the CSPPA than actually doing what's right. Because as we'll lay out here when we get into the strike action element, the CSPPA doesn't even talk to the Tier 2 players. The actions they have taken have actively harmed Tier 2 players. For example, HAVU and Sprout that got kicked out of a league they had rightfully earned the right to be in, and their justification for it now, today, on Twitter, including other players, is, well, ESL were going to do it anyway, so why would we strike? That's exactly when you force their hand. Absolutely. That is exactly when you go to DEFCON 1, when there is no other option.
To strike in that moment would be historic as fuck, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it would have changed things, by the way. You need to know this, players. Oh, and all you people in the CSPPA that say, well, strike action wouldn't have changed anything. That was the only thing that could have forced ESL to give HAVU and Sprout their fucking places back. And I hope every time you fucking have to look those players in the eye, which, let's be real, you don't do that. You feel fucking bad about it, because every time you tweet, say nothing we could do, you are spitting in their face and you are casting out the very idea of what a fucking union is. If you're not willing to stand with the weakest, get the fuck out and let someone who will be there. You fucking heartless, spineless cunts. It's ridiculous. You got to stand up for the little guy. You wouldn't do it because you were more worried about your paper. And what's fucking worse about that is you then put a statement out saying ESL are the best in the business. You fucking empty shells. Fuck you. Don't ever call it a union. It's fucking embarrassing, frankly. So anyway, let's talk about the CSPPA.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about the CSPPA.
I'll just agree with your sentiment. I actually do. Here's the biggest issue. I'm not going to go into the Scoots thing much because that's a personal issue. It has nothing to do with this. I'm only going to talk about him as it relates to being, it appears, some kind of like a not acknowledged, but semi-acknowledged mouthpiece for the CSPPA. Put it this way, the easiest way to say it is, if you think I'm the attack dog of Flashpoint, he's the attack dog of the CSPPA. So the question is, are we attacking the right targets and are we doing it in a reasonable manner, right? All I'll say about him is this. I agree with your initial point. I actually do think that his intentions going into the concept of player union were totally legit. It's one of the reasons why you wanted to do it originally.
Yep.
I even think when it was first launched, it probably was the culmination of a dream he had for a long
Mate,
time.
I was so happy. I was so happy. He was so happy. I celebrated that with him.
Yeah.
But he can't see what it's become.
No, this is my point. But it's like that classic cliche. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. The problem is, at some point in time, as far as I can tell, I'm not involved with this person, he just decided it doesn't really matter what this organization and the people behind it actually do, what they actually stand for, or as we found out today, what they've actually gotten players to sign off on. All that matters is, it's not that what they're going to achieve, it's that they're going to attack my enemies. And as long as they attack my enemies and do damage to them, while at least at a minimum putting forward the ideals, the lofty, flowery concepts that we wanted a union to represent, as long as they do that, you know what? Fuck it. I'm riding with them. And I'm riding with them the whole way. And when they do something I don't like, I'll pretend I'm not involved. But I'll never actually call them out. I'll never say I don't condone this. I'll never say this is wrong. Why would a player union have players' rights? I'll never say, even if I agree that you shouldn't have comms, you definitely shouldn't hold up a live match and basically hold a hostage. I'll never do any of this. And the reason why I can't handle that is because, again, that's why that saying is the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Because it doesn't matter that the Scoots I knew 5 years ago would be completely in favour of all of ESIC's behaviour, would be completely against. He would be the one calling out this shit about CSPPA right now. I wasn't even a guy who knew business back then. I'd have just been retweeting his tweets and assuming whatever he told me must be legit as fuck. I'd be asking you what's going on with it. So that's what the thing that I find so underwhelming is, when I say he's evil on Twitter, I don't mean that as some like static thing that he can never be redeemed. He's done so many actions, one after another, in this regard that just seem evil to me. Like, it's just like the end result of it is just going in a dark, dark place. So he can still come back at any point in time. I'm not talking about personal relationships here. He can still fix all of this aspect. He could be, by the way, the community guardian that I would have classed him as up until this year. I thought it was like, I know we had the G3's Angel thing, but I would have said there was a group of about 10 people. It's like me, you, Scoots, fucking, let me think, Adam Apicella. Who else would be in this group? Who else would we put in this? Who was reasonable to pop in this as like the good guys club or whatever?
I mean, Jason Lake's definitely
Jason Lake's a good one.
I mean, like, fuck. I don't want to leave anyone out.
Some more minor level. You know, there's a bunch of people, that's the point, who basically do what's best for the industry.
Hex, obviously, since he got involved.
But this is what's disturbing to me, is that when you look what CSPPA has become, which realistically is tier 1 esports and fuck everyone else. Or rather, hear about this. CSPPA is tier 1 esport, CSGo, at the expense of everyone else. And I mean everyone else in the scene. And the reason why that is so sick is because think about this for a moment, Scoots. You are literally involved with the definition of an old boys club. That's what this is. It's an old boys club fucking everyone else over because they're not in the old boys club. But it's on some Mason level shit where there's idiots think they're in the old boys club, but they're in the outer part. And it's all the fuckers in the inner sanctum getting all the shit done. So the thing's just so disappointing to me. So let's just get into the CSPPA stuff in general.
So the CSPPA, why we're talking about the CSPPA, for those of you who don't know, it's a player association. It represents all of the Counter-Strike players. That's what it professes to do, all the professional players. In reality, it doesn't really do that. We've had multiple people speak out in the tier 2 saying they've never been consulted, never been asked to vote on anything. It's run by a Danish, a very famous Danish ball buster that worked in Danish football, notorious for strike action, and came with a pit bull attitude and a pedigree of getting things done for players, but very often at the expense of the sport in which he operated. And he's been criticised and praised in equal measure, a very divisive sports figure. So the CSPPA the other day, out of nowhere this comes, by the way, out of nowhere, I didn't even know strike action would be on the table. They decided ahead of the Blast, one of the important games, they're in the knockout stages, moving towards the finals, 10 minutes before the game was coming, they basically said, we're not going to play. And the reason for that, the supposed reason, was that because they had an issue with the way voice communications and screen recordings were being used by the broadcast. Now, for those who don't know, the Blast do a thing very much like the NFL. Right, and I've looked into the NFL collective bargaining agreement just so we can clarify a few points about comparisons. I actually read through the collective bargaining agreement the other day in preparation for this podcast. But basically, they are saying that there's no clear plan from the Blast in how the recordings are stored, where does it go, and it was stated by the CSPPA that the voice chat that had been recorded of teams, the comms, it had been leaked out. Now, I'm just going to say this. First of all, the implication of saying in your statement that it's been leaked out, that implies that somebody took a recording from a team, that the recording in itself has some sort of value, i.e. you can understand what they're doing tactically or blackmail purposes or whatever fucked up fantasy it is. I don't believe it's real anyway. And then they leaked it to another party that would have some use for that, perhaps another team. That's
the implication.
That is so far-fetched. That is so far-fetched. And the only people, as I understood it, that had access to that were certain members of the broadcast production team, and you've worked a Blast, so you can confirm or deny this, and the analysts, because you've said many times, even on this podcast, you used to jump in and have a listen. You had the option to do it,
yes.
and you could bring up things that were said on the show, but any recordings, I believe, could be vetoed by the team if they weren't happy with it. So that was my understanding of what had happened there. I don't believe for a second someone has took a team recording and then sold it to another team. That is so insane, given the really limited scope of people that could have.
The part that seems so implausible about that is the fact that, as you say, it's just slipped in there with a vague allusion to it. Because the problem with that is, right, when I first read that, this is why actually that became that whole area was, there was a lot of signal noise yesterday on that, because everyone was talking about different things. Some people were talking about, should you be allowed to record the comms at all? Other people were like, well, what about the fact that you have the comms, but are they recorded? Other people were like, well, what about what they say on the broadcast referring to the comms? And then someone was like, oh, but what about if someone actually sent that piece of a comm to it? Like, as you're saying, they weren't very precise with their language. So my issue is this. If indeed someone literally leaked a file to anyone else in the community, I said this in my video about doing production stuff, whoever works in production who did that should be fired immediately. And in fact, I think blackballed from the whole industry. Like, that is incredibly sensitive information. There might even be some sort of legal grounds under which you should probably be pursued at that point in time. Then on the angle of analysts saying the stuff on air, you'll notice I myself am extremely careful. I'm more careful than the Blast are with what I will say from what I've learned from the comms. Because my logic and how I've tried to sell it to players goes like this. I'm never going to reveal any of the shit you do. But if I can hear it, it's going to inform me way better, and it's going to let me do my job better. So if you don't want me to do what you think is unjustified criticism, or you want me to praise the right person, let me listen to those comms. I'll take care of it immediately. You know, if I've got the information, I'll use it responsibly. Now, I get it that others won't, but that's why I tried to enforce this at Flashpoint. I said to the other analysts, if any of you leak what I think is like over the line or information, first of all, I'll be on your ass. And secondly, it might be your head as well. Like, you reveal the wrong thing about a player that might be used in a match, could be your ass. That's how serious this is, because this is a privilege, not a right. Like, we don't have a right to these things.
People have forgotten that this is already sort of cropped up as an issue in the scene. So I want to stipulate, I agree with the CSPPA stance on this. 100%. If there's a GDPR consideration. If you're recording, motherfuckers, where's it being stored? How long's it being stored for? Blast might have realistically committed a GDPR violation just alone. I don't know the specifics. Blast obviously are being coy with them. But let me tell you, if that's true, yeah, you're getting it as well. Because I'm not for sale and I'm not on a side. I'll just tell you what I think is right and what is good for the scene. And so I agree with the CSPPA. Yes, this should have been dealt with. Absolutely.
Yeah, agreed.
But this was not the issue for fucking historic strike action. Yeah. And also, they didn't even go into the day telling people if it's not resolved by, whatever it was, 6 o'clock, we go on strike. They didn't even do that.
This was a stunt.
Yes, it was absolutely a PR stunt. And so let me also just add my concerns about this, right? Because first of all, the CSPPA have said they've been in talks for ages trying to get this resolved. They were very explicit in their language when they said that. They said we have been having this talk for ages, yet it seemed to catch the blast off guard. Turns out today we might have a better understanding of why that is. But also as well, the players was obviously had known about it for some time. They were primed. They jumped on Twitter. You know, people like Chris J popping off on launders. You fucked his whole working day up. Now, yeah, fair enough. When you're trying to get your thing, you don't have to care about that. You don't have to respect that. But to then go on Twitter and goad him and sort of argue with him, and it's like, mate, it's just low class. Like, you know, I get it. You're on the fucking board. If it's a big issue and it was worth strike action, you don't need to be a mardy ass bitch on fucking Twitter about it, do you? You just let it get resolved. So that was ridiculous. But I also want to say, now that strike action has been proven to be a viable strategy from these guys, you have to look at.
When you don't do it, it's more telling, right?
Exactly. That's exactly where I'm going with it, Duncan. It's now we look at every other time you didn't.
We see what they actually care about.
Yes.
I always tell people this. This is actually a secret to life, guys. So listen, it's one of the most important pieces of wisdom you will ever hear. If you want to know what someone actually thinks and believes, look only at their actions, none of their words. It doesn't, anyone can say anything they want, but I'll tell you what, good people don't do bad things all the time. Bad people don't say a load of things that sound great and then do a load of good actions. So your actions will always betray who you actually are. And in this case, as you're saying here, they can say all the great things they want in PR they want. The fact that they didn't stand and do strike action against any of these other things, or sometimes didn't even speak out, actually tells you everything you need to know.
Well, I mean, listen, we're in a world now where, like, I'm gonna say this. I never thought I'd get to this place, but like, I want majors. I want Valve involvement. I want a circuit. I want a map pool that gets swapped in and out. I want outstanding community members, people who built this game with their sweat and tears. People like Anders and Semler that spent fucking hours and hours casting irrelevant games back when no one was watching, just to fucking make it look good and exciting. And then Valve say they can't have a sticker in the game and they can't even be recognized because at the end of the day, you're not a player, so you didn't earn your spot. Didn't earn your spot, motherfucker. No one knows who the players are. This is what we came first. We built the scene to let the players flourish. So if you love players as much as you say you do, Valve, respect that. At least respect that. And you won't even tweet at them. But you got time to tweet your fucking memes. That's ridiculous. But right, forget that for a second. What pisses me off is now every time all this stuff comes up again, the majors, like, you don't need the majors anymore, guys, because of the efforts that have been put in, because people will throw money into a startup like Flashpoint and fucking say it's $1 million for some tier 2 team. If you want to come and get it, come and get it. Hey, tier 1s, if you want to play, come and get it too. But we're going to do it no matter what. Right? You don't need the majors no more. Valve aren't even nutting up as much money as Flashpoint, and they're only in their second year. Right? So why wouldn't you go on strike action for Jampy? Why wouldn't you go on strike action for VSM? Why, we know these bans are illegitimate. We know they're illegitimate. We got Valve in a court document literally committing to the legal record. They know Jampy didn't cheat and he's banned. Why will you not fight for your fucking fellow player? Why will you not do it? And I'll tell you why you won't do it. Because I'm all right. And you pat yourself on the fucking back all day while you're raking in 25 fucking grand a month, probably at the low end of all you tier 1 cunts. And you say it's not possible. You didn't go on strike for Jampy. You didn't take any action with Valve, selling us all down the river, shortchanging us. You fucking didn't take any action when ESL kicked your teams out the league. You said we couldn't strike. Wouldn't have changed anything. You didn't even try, you fucking worms. And then on top of that, what about the other stuff? There's players literally robbing you. Players literally robbing you with cheats. Players literally owning teams and playing them in the qualifiers for the World Championship. You will not even stand up against the rotten elements in your own community. What are we doing? The CSPPA isn't fit for fucking purpose at this point. It basically is a shakedown. And that's when we're going to get to the next aspect of this. So I'm going to tee you up, Duncan. Get your fucking bat ready, because I know you're going to knock this one 400 fucking yards or whatever the fuck baseball's measured in. I don't know. Shit game. But anyway, the CSPPA, I know something about the CSPPA, and I know you know it too, and I know many people don't know it. So I'm going to tell you fucking straight how this worked. The CSPPA went out to all of the leagues back when they were founded, and they said, this is our business model. You give us money. You fund us, the leagues. And in exchange for that, our players will say, your event fucking is sound, and you sign this agreement, and we'll all come to it. And some people said, well, I don't know if we really need to do that. Our standards are impeccable as they are. We look after the players. We have a good rapport with the players. And the fucking CSPPA turned around and said, well, maybe we just don't come to your events anymore. It's a literal shakedown. It is a literal protection racket. Nice business you have there, Blast. Shame if someone were to ruin it. And then what? I'm supposed to believe that this hot button topic, this literally throwaway thing, like absolute throwaway thing, you just so happen to go on strike against the one TO, well, one of the TOs that don't have an agreement with you, that hasn't paid you the money. What a surprise. What a surprise. Yeah, I'm hearing about violations, just little things. Just little violations of standards, shit PC, shit monitors, you know, no fresh fruit in the green room, whatever it is, from ESL all the time. You're on record saying they're the best event ever. Oh, what's that? They do pay you the protection money. How strange. I'm sorry to Scott that I have to sit here and say this, because I'm sorry I haven't talked to him about it. And I'll tell you why I don't talk to him about it. Not just because I think he'll tee off, because he's so over-invested in it and he can't see how rotten it's become. But I'm scared. I'm scared of like having an argument with an old friend over something that's
just going to ruin it.
Yeah, that it's just going to. Yeah, so I have stayed away. But I also know you will try and gaslight me, mate. I know you'll try and gaslight me. And this behavior, you called it out when the PEA was doing stuff like this. It's the reason you hate some of these team owners. I stood with you on that battle. Why can't you see the CSPPA are acting in the same fashion? It's a shakedown. It's a mafia. We've been trying to keep them things out of esports since time immemorial. Now you're tweeting about how great one is just because it uses the same methods, but it serves different masters. I'm not about that life. I'm not about that life. I can't be about that life. I want to protect the scene. I don't care who the villain is. I don't care if I like the villain more than the last villain. I don't care if I like the tyrant better than the last tyrant. I want no villains. I want no tyrants. I want purity. The CSPPA does not represent that. It doesn't the way it's behaving. The Blast did not deserve what they have done. So there you go.
Yeah, here's the thing. So if people don't know, what Richard's saying is accurate. Like, first of all, one thing that actually I should tie into that I was shocked to find out myself many months into the CSPPA experiment was I remember saying to the people in Flashpoint, like, I'll tell you straight up, because I'd heard rumors of who the people behind CSPPA were, and then I saw their initial actions. Like, by the way, as soon as I saw that shit with EPL, I even went to the Flashpoint people, and I was just telling them straight up, like, don't do business with these people. Like, look who the fuck they are. I said what you just said. I said it's a protection racket. What they're going to do is the people that give them the money will be called historic, and all of their flaws will be overlooked, and everything they do that's fucked up will only be back-channeled, and then they'll just come out with public PR things like, we have agreed to not run tournaments that start 10 seconds after the last one. This is another historic moment in the CSPPA and EPL relationship. Like, they'll do all that. And I said, what will happen is this, get ready, guys, because someone doesn't deal with them. And in that scenario, it wasn't even going to be us because we actually, in theory, had an agreement with them. I said, you'll see whoever doesn't deal with them, they will not only directly get the brunt of all the shit that CSPPA can throw their way, but that's where Scoots, as an unofficial sort of attack dog, will just attack them relentlessly. You'll never shut the fuck up about them on Twitter. And that's exactly what has played out. And this is where it gets even dirtier. I remember saying to them Why the fuck do they even need our money anyway? Like, they're the player union. Why would they need it? And they said, oh, but you have to understand, Thorin, they're not a union. That's just a colloquial term people use, because a union is a legal entity and it has to meet certain standards, especially if North Americans are going to be involved. In fact, here's all the California law that we did. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars investigating if you can even have a union in professional Counter-Strike in the United States. And what they told me was the reason they're doing this is their only business model. They aren't even, as in, if you join a union, you can clarify this. Anyone who joins a real union, it's funded by the fucking people in the union because it's their interests it serves. You pay what are called your dues.
That's what my business model was. We never had to go cap in hand. I don't want business relationships with the people I might have to do battle
Conflict
with.
Conflict of interest, of course.
Yeah, of course not.
So basically, this is the joke of CSPPA. The way it operates is it is paid by the people it is supposed to police. The TOs and the teams in this case only through Flashpoint, but like I'm sure in the future that'll be the next fucking angle. By the way, you want to be a CSPPA approved organization, that'll be the next shakedown. And so what eventually happens is, like some sort of corrupt element of government, it eventually exists only to perpetuate itself and take in more and more and more funds, while whatever like ideas and ideology it claims to profess is never met unless it coincides with exactly what you want to do in business. In the same way as certain countries only invade other countries where atrocities happen when they have all the business interests aligned that they'll make loads of money from it. But when you get fuck all from it and you just waste a load of troops' lives, yeah, they don't bother invading. They just chill back home and they let that go on. And all the atrocities in the world can go on in those countries. People can wake up and just murder their neighbor, but sorry, no oil to go for there, so we'll just let that go on. So here's the issue I have, right? Is, and I'll tell you straight up some of the stuff that the Flashpoint owners thought, because by the way, I told them going into this is a quid pro quo relationship when you're with me. In order for me to get the word out there about things you can't say about, I'm going to have to say things you can't say that are behind the scenes privileged information. I'm going to have to give Richard information if I want to get information from him that potentially I could use to help you. So they understand going into it that I operate on a different level than some of these other people. So I'll tell you right now, I was against it and I told them from the get-go, don't deal with the CSPPA. You can't trust who's behind it. You can't trust that they're going to do what they say they will. And you can now see by the business model, they're just about the bottom dollar. And this is the sickest part of all, because the way it's been presented publicly, you would believe Flashpoint was against this from day one, that they hated it, that it was terrible. No, the people in Flashpoint loved the premise of the CSPPA. Did you hear that, Scoots? People in Cloud9 wanted a CSPPA. The people you want to destroy because you have some fucking beef with them, mate. The reason they wanted it is because they were stupid enough to actually believe what you believe, that it was the CSPPA. It was a player association. So what they told me, Rich, is they told me, no, the CSPPA is the best thing that could happen to us. Because if we can get them, listen, yeah, we'll have to agree to a bunch of the bullshit they want, like, you know, get approval and all that. But if we can just get them to enforce certain standards with the players, the people whose interests they represent, now we don't have to individually get every player on board with an idea or get every team on board. Well, it'll be quid pro quo. We'll pay them. We'll do some of the things they want. And in exchange, they'll do things for us. Like, you know what? How about we get them to independently make a ranking for us so that then when we tell our teams, we're going to fine you for not placing top X in the world, they can't say, well, that's pretty rigged. You make the rankings or HLTV makes something. We'll be able to say, no, this independent ranking service ranked you outside of this placing, so you get fined, and we don't control that. Similarly, we will be able to get them to check stuff like, so instead of players go to a tournament like they did for ESL and go, this monitor is fucking shit, and DreamHack has to hide a shit monitor inside the outsides of a BenQ monitor that the pro players really approve of and pretend that their monitor is a different monitor at a sponsored event. I think it was ISO or something. Instead of doing that, we'll just check in advance that the players like the monitors. And if they like the monitors, then we can go ahead and we got the CSPPA approval and that's worth the money, right? And I even naively said to them, Rich, listen, I'm an extremist. Like, I go on my principles, and if I think someone's fucked, I won't work with them. But I get your angle. If you're into the business compromise,
never noticed that.
I know. I said, if you think the business compromise works, as in this deal works, they'll give you the rankings and the monitor thing, and you give them whatever little shit they want and the money. I said, I still think the amount of money is outrageous, but I get it. You guys are on a different level than me. You're millionaires playing with billionaires' money, so you're on a different level than I am. And this is the sad thing. When that breach incident happened, happened, where it was actually, by the way, no matter what CSPPA tells you, it was actually Flashpoint claiming that CSPPA breached the contract. I know they just darvoed it and said, like, no, you did. Like, what was genius about that was, you know, the essential underlying message in that legal communication from CSPPA was along the lines of like, well, even if we did say we'd do all that stuff for you,
we weren't legally
we weren't contractually obliged to. Now, so I want to connect a dot for people. If people don't get it, the shit fucking ranking that they brought out in, what was it, like September, August or something, when they published their CSPPA ranking, the one where in like August or September of this year, MIBR was ranked top 8 in the world, impossible by any metric. The only tournament they'd placed highly in that would even count for that is Flashpoint 1. And as the creative director of Flashpoint 1, that should never get you enough points to be that high. It was a mockery. Everything about it was incompetent. Like, if you actually know how to do a ranking, put in 2 years ago's data and let's see if it makes sense. If it spits out that like fucking Quantum Bellator Fire's the #1 team in 2018, you don't need to go public with that, do you? Because it's obviously fucking broken and you can go and tinker with it till you fixed it. Instead, they launched this ranking, said that they had 30 pro players that they'd consulted and asked about it. Idiots like fucking Eleague and others were doing videos like, the new rankings out and I love it. Like JK's like, oh, no, I like this ranking's really good. By the way, obviously hadn't even looked into it, because what you're going to find out about pro players is, you know, when they go, I wasn't informed of this, they're the same cunt who scrolls down, signs the bottom, doesn't read the email from his own organ and goes, I wasn't told about this. What was he meant to do? Get skywriting outside your house and fucking knock on the window, you daft cunt. Like, they sent you the information. So the point is this, right? When these players did all of that and they signed off on that bullshit ranking after years of criticizing my ranking, other people's seedings in tournaments, making an absolute mockery out of their own level of integrity because their company did it, right? When this happens, that ranking that came out in like August or September was the one they were supposed to be doing for Flashpoint 6 months earlier. And when they sent the first draft of that into the Flashpoint people, I'll tell you again what the Flashpoint people won't say publicly. They literally said, holy fuck, this looks like they haven't worked on it at all. And just because we told them, can we see your progress? They've done that thing where you don't study for your exams and you just come and try and blag it the next day. They've sent in some shite that no one's even worked on. Like, there's nothing competent about this. So unsurprisingly, they were like, you know what, Thorin, you're right. We're not going to pay for this shit. In fact, unless they want to take us to court where they'll lose, we're just going to say, fuck it. Knock the whole thing on the head. And also, we've heard some other TOs aren't going to do it. So let's just let the chips fall where they may and let's see what power they actually have. Because this is the other part that blows my mind. What jurisdiction does the CSPPA have over Blast, a company that by definition they have no agreement with? Remember, the same CSPPA won't strike over action with companies they have an agreement with, but now a company that they have zero legal jurisdiction over, they're now going to go, you can't have our players. Like, that's outrageous.
I mean, you've also missed out another aspect of it. Like, why the fuck? This is what your money gets you, guys. So not only did the CSPPA, right, which they're just supposed to be a player union, remember? Just supposed to be a player association that, like, comes to some agreement about the conditions a tournament should be played in. For your $165,000, they fuck you out of a sponsor. And also, let's not forget what else they did. They just started randomly acting as an agent representing players, right? And fucked a deal in the Flashpoint League. Because remember the Heroic and Fun Plus Phoenix deal? That was all meant to be all signed, done, whatever, and it ended up with Flashpoint having, no disrespect to the lads, an inferior team in the form of Bad News Bears. Now, why did that happen? Let me tell you, just apart from the whole grotesque ethical concerns that you have to have about a union that literally listens to players and their problems in confidence, supposedly, talking about their salaries, their earnings, their employers, any issues they might be having, all of these things. You then use that information to tell players that, oh yeah, you can get more money off these guys, you shouldn't go and sign that, when you're not even meant to be an agency, and you devalue one of the partnered leagues. Nah, do you know what you can do with your fucking money? You can come and get it, mate, because I'm not fucking paying you. You fucked my project up, you fucked my league up, CSPPA. And again, this is the madness. Scott's absent while that's going on because he knows you can't justify any of this shit. Of course not. You know you can't justify a union acting as an agency. You know you can't justify fucking a league, a partnered league, out of a sponsorship deal because you're not contractually obliged to do it, even though on your honor and word and There's a debate about whether or not an email is in itself binding.
Yes.
You said you would, and you didn't. So right now, you've already shown how little consideration you actually have for your partnered leagues. So if the word on the street is TOs don't like the cut of your jib, and right now, why the fuck would they? Yeah, you're going to have an hard time. You're like the bully in the schoolyard that's never fought. You're just a big lad, and people are scared because they don't know how hard you are. You're going to get a few digs, CSPPA, and then we're going to know what you're fucking made of. And I think you're a fucking paper tiger. I think in 2 years, you're done, right? I want to tell you an important detail as well that I wrote about, but people don't really know and don't really talk about. This is such a Mads Oland move. This is such a Mads Oland move. He's done it before in football, right? You might not remember this, but there was a game between the Danish national side and Slovakia, and it was a World Cup friendly, right? And just before the game, the players in the Danish in the Danish Player Association, headed up by Mads Oland, all said we're not turning. Well, most of them said we're not turning up. We're going on strike. It was mental. They had to cobble a team together. They played like a salesman up front, a carpenter in goal. They had to pull people from the amateur leagues in Denmark, right? And it was literally the same shit we've just seen in the Blast. Now, here's the difference, though. Why did they do it? Well, they did it because players have their own individual endorsement deals, right? Players are sponsored by energy drinks. Players are sponsored by betting websites. And because the Danish FA had a rule in place that said you couldn't do any promotional work while you were for any of those sponsors if it conflicts with the Danish FA sponsors, notably Carlsberg and some other official betting website, you can't do any promotional stuff into the run-up, which affects your endorsement deals and affects your paper. Now, you know what? Image rights, that's another thing you cunts in CS didn't go on strike for. Duncan and me probably have some of your image rights, you daft cunts. You sell it like it's fucking candy, you're idiots, right? So image rights and your ability to earn paper without an oppressive body saying you can't, that is worth strike action. That is worth fighting for. Mads Oland pulled this over nothing, and we're going to get into the next part.
Yes,
why am I...
segue.
Mate, I've been on this since last night, mate. I've been living in the future. So here we go. Turns out today the plot fucking thickens, as I tweeted, because the Blast said we resolved this. We resolved this with the teams. We resolved this with the orgs. You know, the people we actually have the fucking legally binding agreement with in the fucking first place, right? So here's what they said. This was signed by all of the teams, all of them in the Blast. They said the teams and all tournament organisers, including Blast, have worked, are working, and will continue to work together to ensure that any and all of our players' needs pertaining their participation are met to the best extent possible. As a result of this already successful partnership between the parties, Blast resolved the issues around the usage of voice comms on November 23rd. We fail to understand how and why CSPPA are involved in trying to raise concerns with an already resolved issue without our knowledge or any form of previous communication. While we continue to improve the quality of life of our previous teams and players, we urge both the community and our players to continue raising concerns through the proper channels so that we can carry on improving their conditions in and outside the game. That's signed by Complexity. That's signed by G2. That's signed by Navi. That's signed by Team Liquid. That's signed by NIP, that's signed by Astralis, EG, Mouse Sports, hilarious given Chris J's fucking Twitter the last 24, 48 hours, Furia, FaZe, Vitality, Big, OG, and MIBR.
Everyone.
Yeah, so let me just tell you as well, there are some orgs there that I know will fuck their players.
Of course.
Shout out to you, Astralis, right? There are people there who aren't fit, what? I'm meant to believe Jason Lake's evil all of a sudden. I've got to wake up in a world where Jason Lake's going to co-sign something. A man who, for all, he's had flaws in the past. I'm not saying he's a perfect entity. What 2020 should teach you is no one is perfect. And the world's so crazy. You can find yourself on either the right side or the wrong side of an argument by pure fluke and coincidence. But I'm supposed to believe Carlos, Jason Lake, the people who stood up against Neon and the Neon deal at
Exactly.
Blast are suddenly they're so in bed with Blast, are they? They're so in bed with Blast. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It's like a murder mystery where the guy at the end turns out it weren't even a murder. He did it himself. It makes no sense. It doesn't fucking line up. So Complexity and G2 assign this. Furia, I believe that these guys are going to be genuine. Think of the ridicule you'll be subject to if CSPPA can just put an email out going, what are you talking about, Blast? We talked about this yesterday. You've just sold your entire credibility down the fucking river. All of you, the teams and the Blast. That's why, do I believe CSPPA, someone who was actively lied, someone who created a defective ranking, someone who was fucked over a partnered league in regards to a sponsor, someone who secretly operated as an agent in lieu of even the most basic conflict of interest, on multiple occasions? Or do I believe, right, Blast and all of the orgs that have co-signed it? It's not even a contest, Duncan, mate. It's not even a contest. It's so easy to understand which side is more likely telling the truth. And I don't give a fuck if you're out there standing for the CSPPA going, but if you don't know, you don't know. Listen, everything's a balance of probability. CSPPA ain't done nothing to earn my respect or trust.
Exactly.
Right, Blast has actual lifers in this industry. I didn't like it when it was Nickel and Ion, but I'll also tell you behind the scenes, there's people who work at Blast who never liked that gun. Never liked
some
him.
legit people there.
He was a means to an end.
Yes.
But when you see, Nicholas Estrup, and he used to be a fucking journalist like me in the trenches, you know what I mean? These people love this industry. There is no way they would throw away a lifetime of credibility to make some glib throwaway statement. It doesn't have the ring of truth to it. So here's what I think. Publicity stunt to the fucking max, and a threat, an implicit threat of things to come if you don't pay the CSPPA. And I don't like that at all. I've seen what bullies do in esports, and I'm not going to allow another one just because I'm supposed to be fucking believing, but it benefits the players, man, and the players are the most oppressed people in esports. You said it yourself. Yeah, TOs are on their knees right now, right? Players are still getting paid, especially these tier 1 cunts that are driving this shit.
Also, think about in what bad taste it is, the way that they did the strike. The same CSPPA that was getting ESL in theory to come to talks about, what are the lengths of tournaments and can a match take place at a certain time of night, Richard? Let's just delay a game in prime time. Let's see how many hours this can go. And if it doesn't get resolved, maybe we go past that time. What bad taste is that in? The very thing that you were standing for. That's like saying, when the TO does it, it's totally unacceptable, but we're going to do it ourselves just to teach the TO a lesson. What the fuck are you talking about? You're doing exactly the same thing. There's no rhyme or reason to it. And then there's this other angle we've got to get into because it's so absurd, which is this thing that was just revealed to me, at least today, where, again, of all the people, you know that old saying, politics make for strange bedfellows. Everything does in 2020. Because what you find out in 2020 is you're just like, so Genghis Khan was on my side on this issue. Fuck.
No idea. All right, and you don't know if you're mental or not.
Exactly.
You don't know if you're mental.
Check. You have what you call a sanity check from it, do I think? No, I'm still fine, right? This is actually happening. So basically, Ryan Morrison, who, if people don't know, I thought we'd seen the last of as he sunk below the fucking swamp after being essentially out of the industry this summer and being quiet as fuck since, has his own beef with CSPPA, as himself a semi-scummy lawyer / agent guy who knows, listen, if anyone would know about fucking other players and doing some potentially shady shit, he knows the way that entire game's made, doesn't he? He's run the circuit a few times. So he comes out, but like a lot of people, he still has his own indignation when other people do it. So what he brought out was a document that essentially showed something that CSPPA already threatened at earlier this year. And I found very weird from the Flashpoint side, because when they came out, Richard, and put that letter to us saying that, you must pay us the money you owe us because otherwise you're in breach of the contract and you will be in real big trouble, even though they never did anything because they are a paper tiger, right? When they did that, one of the things they mentioned in it was really weird. It had this section where it essentially said that like that Flashpoint, which remember is a team owned by the actual organizer. It's a tournament organizer owned by the team organizations that play in it. And they said that essentially Flashpoint, the league, needed some of the rights that they'd signed from the players. Now, everyone within Flashpoint was like, what they're literally, it's a bluff. They don't know what they're talking about. Like, we've got all the players' rights. That's the whole point of what they sign in their contract. Again, if people don't know, here's the cliff notes of how esports works. There's one giant pie, about 95% of its sponsorship. The way you get that sponsorship is you sell the likeness rights of those players on your team to those sponsors through the tournament organizer, through your own team sponsors. And that's where the entire revenue model's based at the moment, right? That's where it's all. So essentially, a team is like an agency that just takes your license rights and sells them, because guess what? Jack Etienne's 100 times better than Chris J or NBK are selling their rights. Now, the idea that now it comes out that that wasn't just some idle threat. CSPPA has surreptitiously, with no one ever knowing this, certainly none of the watchdogs that are in bed with them ever mentioning it publicly or privately, have apparently signed all of those player rights, image rights, for something mental. Like, wasn't it like 5 years and with no conditions with which you were released from it? Like, essentially, here's the breakdown. If you were Scoots and the reason you wanted a CSPPA was to fight against scumbags using image rights and not giving players what they deserve and the chance to... the org itself is doing that. They're the worst offenders as far as I can tell. Because here's the thing, right? When Cloud9, we'll use them as an example, gives a player way more salary than he ever makes back in total gross revenue for Cloud9, do you think in that scenario that Cloud9's got a good deal where they said, I'll give you more money than you make me and you give me your image rights? Seems like a fair deal at this point in the industry. Notice my key caveat, this point in the industry. One day it won't be. The problem is this. When CSPPA takes your player rights, what do you get in exchange for it? What money do you get? What opportunity do you get? What actually happens? In fact, they might even fuck up a match for you. They might fuck up a tournament for you. They might get your team not even into a tournament. You might not even get into an order. Like, this is mental. Like, this layer right now should be the biggest part of it all, because this was crazy, this document.
Yeah, so basically, like, as I said, you know, Ryan Morrison, I got my own concerns because obviously he's a talent agent. He's a sort of he was a specialist in copyright law who became a sort of talent agent, and his organization has pretty much the Overwatch sort of scene on lockdown, representing in some cases teams and players, which I think never. You know, I don't think you can serve two masters.
It's an obvious conflict of interest.
Yeah, you shouldn't be doing that. But whatever. Maybe one day I'll benevolently try and fix Overwatch, but it won't even be there, will it, by the time I get round to it? So, whatever. But he's leaked this document saying as a lawyer, he would never, a lawyer and an agent in good conscience, he would never allow a client to sign this contract. And the reason for this is because there is a clause in the contract where you assign all intellectual property, including your God-given name, for a term of 5 years, and there is no grounds for termination for any reason. I need you to think about that.
I don't think that would even legally stand up, by the way, but the point is you'd have to fight really hard.
CSPPA are publicly saying this is standard in all sports. Now, I know I've seen real sports contracts. My understanding was that for leagues, things like the NFL, the reason they take your image rights in perpetuity is because it has a limitation, like a liability understanding, that while they own your image rights in perpetuity, they obviously like lapse back to you. You retain all your legal rights should you want to maybe withdraw yourself from the league, but it's mostly there so they can use footage of you, interview footage of you.
So they don't need you to sign off on every little thing.
Exactly,
basically.
If they don't want to do a promotional aspect. But I brought all this up when it came up in League of Legends, that basically the reason the League of Legends image rights contract was a problem, they had a clause specifically in their contract, people forget this about Riot, where the clause was, we can even edit your voice. So Riot could have you like in the fucking Simpsons. You are good at turning me on. I never said that. don't matter. They can do what the fuck they want. You've signed off on it, right? And some lawyers said, you know
Welcome
what?
to the new member of KDA. It's double lift. I am here. Like, mate, that could happen. That could be real.
That could actually happen. Now, I don't know if they've ever gone back and revised it. It was like 2013, I want to say, when I got a copy of that contract. You know, it's a different world now, but whatever. So the point is, I've always been paying attention to image rights. You've heard me on this very podcast say image rights are important. It's you dickheads. It's your brand. Like, hold on to it. I had to sign off when I went at Turner so they could put me in fucking trailers for the show and put me up on a billboard. And I had lawyers go over that with a fucking fine-tooth comb. I don't want to rock up fucking, 5 years from now, just look up, I'm on a billboard with a dick in my mouth or something. I'm not, which is fine. It was an accurate photo. I just don't want them to use it. But, the reality is, like, it's your image, man. You don't want to let people fucking, have that for free. Like, you got to get your paper for it at the very least. So anyway, the fact that this is 5 years and for no reason, let's say you have a beef where the CSPPA doesn't serve your interests. In fact, they actively fuck you and you leave the CSPPA. You say, I no longer want to be in this union. I no longer want to be represented by this union. Sure, right, as a pro player. By the way, you don't just have to be there because it's the only show in town. There are some aspects of it you might be better off making another union. Some of you disgruntled guys in the tier 2, you can do this. These are all real solutions. But let's say you do decide to break away. For the next however many years, without any argument, they can use your face, your voice, your quotes to promote their union as being something good long after you've left because you realized it was something bad. That's sinister. I'm sorry. I don't care. I don't even care if it's standard. It's sinister. We don't have to do things the way sports motherfuckers do, by the way. So telling me it's standard in football where you've got people making fucking way more money, higher stakes, different frameworks, different expectations. We're our own thing. Some of those methods and modes of thinking are outdated, and we should actively reject them and push back when we see things that don't work for our players. And unfortunately, the madness here is the players are signing off now on a contract that does, whether you want to fucking accept it or not, actually fuck over players and put you in a bad position because you're now relying on the same people that, for the sake of a publicity stunt, have held the first ever strike action in esports history over nothing. They now hold your image rights for the next 5 years. Good job, guys. Let's hope they don't use it for anything sinister. Let's hope they don't have a fucking, Valmorphanized Eleague, like saying the CSPPA is great long after he's realized they're fucking him over. Let's hope not. But these guys don't give a fuck. This is about power. It's about a land grab. It's not about serving player interests. As I said, if it was, you would serve the little guy. If you were interested in if you were interested legitimately in player interests, you'd be going after the likes of ESL that dominate 80% of the calendar and don't allow any competition to thrive and choke everyone out just by sheer oppressive force of will and having more money and longer tenure in the scene. You wouldn't be in bed with them taking money from them saying they're the best thing ever as they kick people out of the league, would you? You'd be fighting for those players. You're not interested in that. You're interested in getting a piece of that fucking esports bread, and that's what it was all about. Yep. Meanwhile, on top of that, and I'll let you in a sec, but also going to war with the Esports Integrity Coalition. I noticed Scoots was tweeting them, calling them a little governing body, and there were names.
This is hilarious, by the way, but
there were names that I respected in there saying, "Oh, those guys are running a racket." Holy shit.
I know.
If ESIC are running a racket, running on fumes, no money, trying to clean up our scene, what the fuck is the CSPPA?
I know.
But we'll get to that tweet in a sec, and I'll let you in. Yeah, this licensing agreement, I don't like it, and I don't like the idea of players giving away everything for 5 years to an entity that's provably corrupt at this point.
What I wanted to say was this. I'll just tie it back into what I said earlier. Here's a food for thought exercise that you can do for a second. Just think about this and the implications of what I'm saying. So like I said earlier, how you can judge people by their actions. Don't listen to what they say. They can say anything, but look how they actually act, right? If I was an organization which wanted to best represent player interests and their voice and also make the situation in the scene and their teams the best for players, Here's how I would address the image rights issue. From day one of CSPPA existing, I would be organising seminars, I would be sending out booklets, I would be having one-on-one counselling sessions with legal experts and pro players telling them, now some of you this year are going to have contract negotiations and you're going to re-sign with your teams. I know, for example, players in Mouse Sports re-signed this year. So you like that, Chris J? Get ready, motherfucker. I'm going to actually teach you now. So what you would have done is you would have told those players, here are what your image rights are. Now, yes, in the industry you currently operate in, your team's going to ask for most of them, but we can maybe push back in these areas. Like maybe on this one particular one, you can have the option where if you can get a higher personal sponsor for this one aspect, you can take a lower salary, make more from the sponsor, and it can be incorporated into what you do, and it won't matter if the team has a difference. Maybe we can start to push back on these things. Or you know what? If you're a star player, maybe you can get some leverage as part of your deal. You agree to take less in a different area, you get a different thing here. It's kind of like when George Lucas did the deal for the merchandising. At the time, it wasn't a great deal, but in the end, he ended up having a lot of foresight and ended up making him more money than the fucking movie makes. So basically, you would educate on that. Now, do you want to know why they don't do that and why that's not something they do and why the only time image right things come up is when they're bragging about having everyone's image rights or they're making you not go on a broadcast, is because when they teach you all those things I've just talked about how to negotiate with your own org, which would even be responsible since players are re-signing in Counter-Strike all the time because we have no true off-season like League of Legends. The reason why you wouldn't do that is because you don't make fucking anything from that. You make zero, diddly squat, nothing. In fact, you might end up with players who don't get deals as a result of it. So you make nothing. Instead,
makes you wonder if they are still running that agency on the side, doesn't it? Yeah. You know.
Interesting, isn't it? By the way, I won't even get into the whole heroic FPX thing, because heroic, you're going to catch the fucking fade yourself metaphorically next year, mate. When I get home and I get to a computer, I've got some fucking straight fire gems to drop out these cunts. They're unbelievable. But the difference is they're just small fish compared to this. We don't have to get into that now. But yeah, basically, think about that. The actual, are they even serving the players? Like, that's one of the things that's all, dude, I myself, this year, when I heard of a player re-signing without properly testing the market, did a fucking video on this topic. Why am I a journalist who you, if your CSPA would claim I'm against player interests? Why am I trying to educate your players on how to even fucking operate in a market where you pretend to not be their agent, act as their agent, give them none of the benefits, and by the way, none of the legal recourse of having them as an agent? Like, the whole thing's a joke.
I mean, on top of that, though, there's just this broader issue. So first of all, like, and this will happen if the CSPPA sticks around. This will definitely come up. Someone will break away. Someone will say, I don't want to be rep by you anymore. And that image rights thing, because they've got image rights, what you have to know about the thing about image rights are, you can then challenge other parties that have image rights and say, I got the image rights after, you know, things like this. The fact that that Mads Oland himself was willing to have professional Danish footballers break away from an international game to fight to retain the image rights, but has come to esports and has basically took esports competitors' image rights for 5 years for like no money and just representation, and we don't know what they're gonna do with them.
Shows what he's made of.
Yeah, well, that's fucking ridiculous, isn't it? It's ridiculous. He's literally been the hero in one story and thought, you know what, on this playthrough, I'll be the evil cunt.
It's just Diablo 2.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the twist at Diablo 2. But also, I wanted to just bring this up as well, right? What the CSPPA should be doing is, like I said, I think you should be going to war with some of these orgs. I've seen some outrageous esports contracts down the years. I mean, really outrageous esports contracts. I've seen some team owners absolutely bend their players over in ridiculous ways. This is where the CSPPA should be at. You're going to war with the leagues that have agreements with the people that employ the players. So what you're saying is, well, those contracts don't matter. Fuck those. The contracts between the teams and the players, we don't care about them. We'll just bait them into strike action. They don't work for you. Strike has to be the last resort, used in like dire fucking circumstances. And you've thrown that out for like seemingly nothing. And also the chain of communication completely broken down. Sounds like there was no need for any of this to happen whatsoever at all. So I really can't understand how it is that like the Blast has an agreement with people who employ the players. We're just going to circumnavigate that now. That ain't good for the ecosystem. It ain't good that you're going to strike over things like this. This wasn't the thing. This definitely wasn't the thing. So also, I do want to just bring up, because there was a little sort of additional thing That like because this story's breaking, it's coming out like literally as we're doing the stream and sort of doing it as well. Like the Blast, right? They are in a situation where they're trying to run a tournament under all of this, like, you know, fucking scrutiny. You've got players playing in this tournament that have basically made it actively clear they don't value the tournament or anything it brings to them whatsoever. They don't want to cooperate. They don't want to engage in any of these like ideas, you know, because they're worried about a recording being kept when the Blast has already agreed we're going to delete the recordings. Let me tell you, if you were playing in the NFL, I looked at this. Right, here's how it works in the NFL. And this was agreed by the players. This is the collective bargaining agreement. It's publicly available. If you want to see how one of the biggest sports in the world operates and what players agree to, go check it out. It's a bit of an eye-opener. Some of these esports competitors are fucking prima donnas. Here's how it works. Says Section 13, on-field microphone and sensors. During NFL games and for the express purpose of creating of NFL programming, NFL Films will be permitted to put microphones on any players that the NFL selects. During the regular season, each starting quarterback will be required to wear a microphone at least once, but no player will be required to wear a microphone for this purpose more than 4 times during the course of a regular season. And when you go into the clauses, they retain those recordings in perpetuity because they want to use them for content. So basically, what you're fighting for here is you're fighting for the right to basically dictate, what the Blast can do with recordings that you've already kind of consented to make. Now, it always made me nervous because I hate the idea of a player saying something in the heat of the moment and being held accountable for it. Yeah. But the Blast also acquiesced, and I know this. And they were saying to Orgs that we were going to use this. Is that all right? And if it reveals a strat or if it, something else, they delete it. They get rid of it. They're not looking to fuck over the players with this. They might have just mishandled the data.
They did it accidentally one time, and that was a pure accident where you could tell whoever in production did it just didn't get what they were revealing, essentially.
Yeah. So I don't know, mate. Like for me, right? The CSPPA is actually, and I know the players can't see this right now, I know the players have been under the yoke in some instances, and it feels good, doesn't it? Feels good to be the power
to be the one kicking
right
back
now.
Of course.
Yeah, I totally get that, mate. I mean, in many ways, that sort of defines mine and Duncan's career. But you have to understand the empty victory of that.
Yes.
If it comes at the expense of destroying certain things. Like, what happens next? What's the next chapter? What if you disagree with what the Blast say? Are you just gonna not turn up to their events? I reckon that's a realistic possibility.
The ends don't justify the means, basically.
Yeah. I think it's a realistic possibility that players are going to refuse to play for their employers, the people that contract them, at Blast because of this, and because Blast won't enter an agreement with CSPPA. That was never happening now. I think this is a shakedown. I think the end goal was to show Blast, like, if you don't sign up with us, we can take the players away from you anytime we want. But there's no incentive now. It was it was just so egregiously applied. So I think that's the next chapter. I think we're going to get into the minutiae of some players are going to threaten to not play their tournaments again, and the CSPPA is going to back them. And that's a fucking mess, guys.
Yes, that is what will kill Counter-Strike, by the way. Remember, these same teams are the ones with the Valorant teams. They're the ones with teams in other games. You know what they're going to say when they find out that the game that already loses you all the money, and at the moment, the only path to making that money back is through these leagues. If they find out you are going to play hardball, there's 2 ways this goes. Either one, you're fired as players. You can go and find another org. And by the way, there are not going to be enough seats in this game of fucking musical chairs. I can guarantee you that right now. Or 2, forget your game entirely. I'm going to Valorant. I'm going to any other game out there, Rainbow Six. I'm going to all these other games. They might not be as big as CS, but they're not a fucking nightmare. I don't have these cunts up my arse the whole time, where if I even give in to them, I know I'm not even dealing with a reunion. I'm just dealing with someone tricking my own fucking player. Like, this is outrageous. Like, another thing I want to say is this, is an area that I feel like people don't get it who are pros, is pros are doing this classic mistake, which typifies culture right now, Richard, which is I've known, believe it or not, from my like fucking ultra investigations into the occult, that the power of words is immense. I mean, you could tie it into your world of like burrows and word as a virus, that takes over the way your mind works. Basically, A word has such power because of the associations you put with it that the trick in modern society, because of how dumbed down people are and how shit the level of public discourse is, you don't have to actually represent anything the word says. The word just has to represent that. And so as a result, if I was to call, I'll give you a fun example. Say I just renamed myself by deed poll, so I'm no longer Duncan Shields. My name is Human Rights. Well, now, every time anyone has an argument with me and says, I disagree with Thorin, I go, you disagree with human rights? Wow, he's against human rights, right? Everyone can see what a transparent and stupid argument that would be, right? But that is literally what the CSPPA and certain movements around the world are doing right now. That is their fucking mechanic by which they manipulate society. So what the CSPPA does is they make people like Chris J, who just tweeted this like 10 minutes ago, say things like, well, the reason why we couldn't take strike action against EPL for taking those team slots is because then there would Then there would be no pro league. Like, then it wouldn't even happen. Like, essentially what he's arguing is this. He's arguing that like what they did is better than nothing, and therefore it justifies not doing more. And similarly, I've had this argument the few times I've tried to back channel with the cool people in CSPPA, and it always comes back to this, Richard. It's like what you said earlier. They go, look, Thorin, we didn't have anything before. We didn't have any representation. So I agree, there's problems with how it's done, and they're really bad at communicating, but this is like our only path to getting there. And I always tell them, no, that is exactly where we are ideologically split apart. Because I see what you are doing with CSPPA as something that is getting in the way of ever having a real association that represented the players and fought for these things. You're not actually getting further towards that. You're ensuring you will never get there. It is only actually by taking it back a step and starting a new organization or cleaning the deck of whoever's corrupt within it and retooling that we can ever get to the point where you have a real association. Because I agree, you were never going to get EPL to entirely change the league. But the point is, if that's your starting position, where are you ever going to get anything done? You never. So, yeah, basically it's fucked in that regard, mate. The players have to get that. Like, this is not a case where something is better than nothing. In this case, the something is getting in the way of the real thing ever existing.
Let me also just show you the nonsense that is dredging up with this, and then we'll talk about the ESIC thing, and then we'll probably wrap the show. I mean, like, we're not even going to get to talk about the fucking game, and you know what? It's all academic, guys, because if we don't start fucking, creating a space where leagues can exist without bigger leagues trying to fuck them, I get competition. You don't have to go all out to destroy anything that's new without teams understanding, like, yeah, you know what? Maybe we won't try and play all sides. Maybe some of us will go here, some of us will go there. That'll make the games at the major more interesting if we don't play each other week in, week out during a fucking pandemic. You don't Valorant is waiting in the wings, like Duncan said. And these team owners, Carlos is already there, Jason Lake's already there. These guys love Counter-Strike, but if you give them no business incentive to stay, they go. And trust me, that pyramid is going to come crashing down like you've never seen. It will be the CGS all over again. It will be Brood War in Korea all over again. We are staring into that reality in 2021 because people will not get their shit together. But look at this, right? Trust my boy Davey, one of the realest motherfuckers in the fucking scene, to actually call this out. This is on Twitter. I sent it to you, Sam. Basically, like, because Chris J is having a normal one, and the CSPPA is arguing with Sadikist, and Chris J is arguing on behalf of the CSPPA, like as if he's like the guy driving it all. He's so dumb he doesn't even see how he's been manipulated and fucking, had smoke blown up his ass. So he thinks like, I'm in actual charge. You will be used and tossed aside, mate. You'll find out. Don't come crying to us when it happens. But anyway, Davey said, right? Well, rather, he replied to a tweet from the CSPPA that said, the point of a player association is to be player-driven and work solely to the benefit of players. The same structure is seen with other player associations. It has worked this way for a long time. Well, that statement's true. The statement's true. That's not what CSPPA are doing. As Davey replies, he says, was it player-driven and looking after players when it co-signed more than 60 players losing their Pro League spots? And so Chris J, again, how can you argue for the evil? That's the madness to me. How can you do that? And he said, would you rather have no Pro League at all? From what I understand, EPL ESL was not profitable the way it was, so something had to change. Maybe if we did a strike, they would find more money. Yeah, that's exactly right, Chris. That's exactly how you do it. They're saying it's not a priority. You force their hand and make it a priority. You come to the table after the strike, and maybe, instead of 60 people losing their jobs, maybe it's only 30. Now, that still sucks for the other 30, but you changed the world for the better by doing that. You weren't even willing to do it. And as
By the
David...
way, think about, just for a second, just think about what he actually let slip there, Richard. He wasn't willing to even conceive of a world where you just added the extra slots, like whatever, 4 teams, and you just split the prize money among the extra slots. He had to get his money, and then there had to be more money for the teams. Like, Chris J, you've let it slip, mate. You've just given us the tier 1 mindset right there.
Yeah, and then Davey replies with, I don't think it's a responsibility of a players' association to make sure TOs make responsible business choices. You're there to protect the players. And he goes, agree. I know the CSPPA tried to find another solution, but it didn't work out. And then Davey replies with, did the CSPPA talk to any of the players about to lose their jobs? And that's the perfect thing. That tells you what the CSPPA is, because I will tell you firsthand, and guys like Disturbed at HAVU will tell you, and the guy who runs Sprout will tell you, absolutely not. Absolutely not. They didn't even talk to their members and go, listen, you're all about to get fucked. Do you want us to try and fight this?
And said they just saw the news. Like, what
they
the fuck?
literally... Oh yeah! Imagine waking up and finding out you're not in the league you qualified for. You just got Let me tell you, that's exactly...
even sponsorships based on being in those league spots as well.
That is exactly what CGS did. People don't know. We were all at CGS, right? All the people who went for CGS, and then you woke up and CGS had sent you an email saying, yeah, we're closing down. By the time you had your coffee and read the email, it was all gone. The website was gone, the videos were gone, the team was gone, the IP was gone into a black hole forever, by the way. What's that? You sold the Complexity brand, Jason Lake? Fuck you. We're not even going to explain how you can possibly get that back. We're just gone. And that's what people woke up to. They thought they were protected. That's the despicable part of it. They thought they were in a union. But they weren't. They weren't in a union. They were basically giving power to an entity that doesn't care about them at all. So don't ever tell me that you fight for players. And like I say, I think it's embarrassing, frankly, that Chris J has been so manipulated by this entity because they've been given money, basically, and they're helping them get their paper, that he's going to go and defend the independent. I know if Mouse Sports got kicked out of a fucking league tomorrow that they had qualified for, or they weren't in the tournament, he would be maulding more than he actually is now, mate. He'd be fucking screeching so hard. And if the CSPPA turned around and went, well, we're not even going to fight for you, even though you're a board member, he'd lose his fucking mind. His brain and his peanut head would fucking explode, mate.
If the CSPPA said, but Chris, these leagues aren't making much money and the business model just doesn't account for sports being in, would he go, well, I'll on me way then with me bindle. No. No chance. Fuck, you'd be crying your eyes out, mate.
You would be calling out the CSPPA and you'd be asking people like me and Duncan to come and fight your corner. That boat sailed forever, by the way. It sailed the day you said people in HAVU don't deserve a job. People in Sprout, all the other teams I'm missing out. Boat has sailed. I'll never fight. I'll fight for them anytime. Not you. Not you. You made your choice. I hope it's not a bad bed you're going to lie in. By all accounts, you're either going to get cut or retire soon anyway, mate. So I don't give a fuck. You're not going to be relevant to me in about fucking 18 months. Don't care. So anyway,
by the way, I've got a thing to say as well, because I wanted to get your take on this, which is, people keep saying that angle, like, why aren't you and Thorin? Why don't you back channel with them? I'll tell you the way it works in esports. What's great is when you're an up-and-coming journalist, right? You're starting the beat out. You have to learn the ropes. You have to make the connections, the networking. You have to do the stories that show you can keep your mouth shut so then someone can trust you with a piece of information. You have to break a story, but in a way that's so good that then that all comes to you and says, listen, don't break my next story. I'll give you the fucking exclusive interview if you let the story go. You get all this, right? Well, you know what the cream of that is at the end? One thing that makes it all worth it is one day you don't have to pound the street for every story. The stories come to you. You're the fucking spider at the middle of the web and all the shit comes into you. And as a result, anything literally worthwhile comes your way anyway. You hear about it. It comes in your circles. So I've found this is a trend that is almost universal in esports. There's two ways it manifests. One, anyone who comes into esports that has ill intent for the space or the people in it automatically immediately starts attacking me and Richard. Because on some fucked up level, they know eventually we're coming for them. What's funny is we don't know it at the time. We just start going, that's weird. Why are they attacking? Who the fuck even is this guy? But you know, it's like the guilty conscience. They know like this guy's going to get me one day. So the other way it manifests is this, Richard. When they're doing shady shit, they're the only ones that don't back channel with you. They're the only ones. So I have pro players from CSPPA back channel with me. I have people who work for CSPPA but aren't head people back channel with me. I have people in T-Borgs, even in TOs that I say I fucking hate and need to be destroyed now, back channel with me and ask my opinion, or is there any way we can overcome this? I notice none of the top people in CSPPA are making any attempt to, because they know, Richard, ultimately, all they can do is give themselves away further if they do that. They need a smoke screen from which to operate, and they need it to be that we never communicate publicly with the CSPPA. We communicate with beloved players like NBK, Chris J. Even people like Fallen, you know what, for all his ills, he's obviously a great guy on some level. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So are we going to go as hard against them? Now, we're fucked up enough, maybe we will, but a lot of people won't. It's the dirtiest tactic ever.
Yeah. I mean, look, right, so just to put a pin in this particular topic, I'm going to get on to a bit about ESIC and then we'll wrap it up. I guess we'll have to come back and burn
one soon enough, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll do one in a few days, I reckon, mate, since you're fucking bored out your mind anyway. I'm probably doing you a fucking favour, aren't I? But here's another tweet, right? I'm not making this up, guys. Like, I urge all of the players that thought they were in a union, that have never been talked to, never consulted, never helped, never been asked to vote, even by your own fellow players. I urge you now, tweet or expose this fucking fraudulent organization for what it is, guys, because they don't care about you. You think you're in something, you think you might climb the ladder, you won't. You're going to end up in Valorant. They will not fucking help you. They will not. They're just going to help the people they can use to be power brokers in this scene. That is the Faustian pact the people on that board have entered into. So Vanity has just tweeted out saying, I'm in the CSPPA, but nothing regarding my team or the NA scene has ever been brought up. Now, point of information, think about what's going on with Chaos right now. Think about what's going on with Chaos right now and all the mad shit that's gone on with them. Where was the CSPPA when Chaos players were being threatened and harassed? You can speak up about things like that. Maybe it would have shut some of the, Brazilians up if Taco had come out and said, listen, Brazilian fans, don't go after a 16-year-old boy. But actually, you were happy to co-sign that with your silence, weren't you? Because you actually do think that Leaf cheated, even though he proves week in and week out he's better than any of you cunts. He's straight up battering you, and he's going to be a hell of a talent. Him and Zeppa probably too, like, of the realest, legit talents NA's thrown up. Sad they're not going to get a career in Counter-Strike. Sad they'll probably be playing in Valorant, but I wish them all the best. You do you, by the way, kids. Don't stick around in this sunken cost fallacy and throw your life away, because clearly no one's willing to fucking stand with you guys. But, look what's going on with Chaos. They've just won a fucking tournament. They're right up there. CSPPA have said absolutely nothing about all the shit they've gone through. They've said nothing about organizations making commitments and promises, announcing big celebrity fucking sponsors and investors, but not standing with any of the players and cutting them loose. Oh, bloody hell, the pandemic, it's costing us money. It's not, you haven't lost a sponsor. You've got the same amount of money you actually had, and you're not sending your teams abroad. There's some questions that need to be asked here. There's a line of inquiry that needs to be explored. And the CSPPA doesn't care. Do you know why? Because you're small fish. You chum in the water. They don't give a fuck about you guys. So I urge you, if you're in a team right now and you think you're rep by the CSPPA and you've never been consulted or voted, get it out there. Get it out there, because enough's enough. It's bollocks. My idea of a union is, like you say, you start at the bottom, you elevate those guys.
The standard that you treat the guy who's at the bottom by is what you can judge the union by. The bottom worker, the guy who makes the least money, has the least part. Yep. If that guy's not taken care of, the union's a joke. It's just an old boys club, like I said.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So anyway, Here's the other thing I'll say. This is why I don't like the CSPPA, and I actually question the prescribed wisdom of some of the old experienced people in esports. I've talked many times about ESIC, so let me just explain why I think ESIC is important. I've always thought their goals were noble. I always thought what they wanted to do was important. I think more than a player association, having a governing body that will actually give some kind of cohesive punishments for cheaters and scumbags, but reasonable ones, so we don't rely on the tyranny of the developer. I think that's way more important.
That's super important.
Yeah, I think that's way more important for getting our space sorted out. And I met with Ian Smith, Bristol lawyer, as you know him on Twitter, when he founded it. I went and had a beer with him. I looked in his eyes. I saw he was genuine. I looked up his history in cricket, how he defended players that had unfair bans, and he pushed for scumbags to get bans. He was on both sides of the equation. He's a man committed to integrity in sports. You can say whatever else you like about him, but that is fucking true. He's a nice guy, in my opinion. So, yeah, I'm biased because I don't only respect him, I do consider him a friend. Now, what is going on when people who supposedly want to live in this world where I don't speak for the CSPPA, but I'm speaking for them. I don't work for the CSPPA, but I consult with them. It's not
fucking walkie-talkie, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not my baby, but I'm on the website. Like, mate, like, shit, I'll get off the pot. Like, that's just reality here. But anyway, when ESIC said they had an issue recently where they literally couldn't punish the teams for stream sniping, which, by the way, that's you players doing that.
I know, it's sick.
That's you coaches doing that. You are destroying the fabric of this game. People have said to me, Richard, why don't you rate online Counter-Strike? Oh, let me go through the fucking reason, shall I? 37 coaches cheating by hovering in the sky and calling out information so we get aberrations result like fucking Hard Legion beating a Na'Vi team with the best player in the world in it and them scratching their heads. Teams have literally been wiped from the face of existence because of that use of the coaching bug, because they got eliminated by cheaters twice in a row at a tournament, and the all goes, well, you're obviously shit then.
No, Richard, why don't you give credit to this team that's never been anywhere close to the top 5 of the rankings, but now they're number 1 in the world, and magically, with no great IGL, they just seem to adapt to everything everyone does about 4 rounds later. What do you want? What do you want? Look at what's been exposed. You fucking morons have ruined it for everyone. I wanted to be able to build those storylines that Big and Heroic and fucking all of these teams were super legit when we went to LAN. It would be about, now's the time to test how good they are. Like, no, all of your results are moot now because everyone, it turns out, was watching the stream. Everyone. No wonder you didn't out each other. You were all doing it. So there's the problem. In this world, by the way, I don't want to hear anyone tell me, but this guy wouldn't do it. He's won a major, but this guy wouldn't do it. He's a legend. Go and look at the list of the coaches who were banned. All of them they were from every walk of life. Like, it's invalidated every online result, including, by the way, Flashpoint 2. You like that? Throw that in the bin as well. The second LAN's come back. I don't give a fuck about any of the Flashpoint results.
Yeah, I mean, but just think about how insane it is. It's the lack of self-awareness. Motherfuckers like Starix rocking up, rocking up and saying, yeah, cheating bad. I knew about the bug years ago, like, fucking ridiculous. Get caught using it. And then says, I don't even remember using it. Just another day being a scumbag to him. Didn't even fucking register. His brain didn't even decide to record it. And then he's got the nerve to say, but Flush is a fucking massive cheat. No evidence, never got caught. So regardless, it's fucking irrelevant, right? Your fucking opinions. You are now a convicted cheater. And what? Hard Legion come out and said, yeah, even though we've had 3 coaches cheat and we definitely weren't all in it, also Starix is keeping his job. Suck my fucking nuts. You're killing this scene stone dead, you cheating bastards. And then you got the fucking nerve to talk about, well, what are TOs doing? It's all irrelevant if the games don't matter, you fucking morons. It's all irrelevant. It doesn't matter what TOs do. No one's gonna watch you fucking fixing games in Tier 2. Our semi-pro scene is decimated with little cheaters. Because the only punishment for fixing games that should never be on gambling sites in the first place, is you don't get to play at a major. They're never playing at a major anyway. So what's they're not getting paid. They're not getting paid because every fucking startup league that happens dies fucking instantly, or they get kicked out of the league anyway by people like ESL, and the player association says this is fine. There'll be no long-term repercussions. Exactly. The scene is going to die, you stupid cunts. Do you not see what you're doing for, like, the greed today the money today, the paper today, and you have about 5 people at ESIC. You have about 5 people at ESIC that are trying, like holding it up, man. Like Atlas. They're trying to hold it up, and people go after them. People go after them. What are you thinking? You can't even pick the accurate targets for your ire in this business. So why are you fit to tell players where they should be aiming? So I saw Scott tweet out about this, and he said literally, do you want people to not care or worry about your little regulatory body? Because this is how you get people to not care or worry about your regulatory body. I saw people I respect door in there saying, look, who do these people think they are? They're the only people. They're the only people that are trying to stop players getting every little advantage they can to win games, rob their fellow players, and then probably fuck off to Valorant anyway all the same. Because lol, guess I killed Tier 1 CS. Let's blame Valve. ESIC are the good guys, you fucking plums. Adam Apicella even said, like, in this chain, he went, yeah, these guys tried to come to us and run game and ask if we would fucking pay them to basically govern their thing. And it's like,
CSPPA, are you even listening? Are you even listening?
Oh, get me out. Like, I respect you, mate.
I know, it's mad.
I respect you, mate. It's got to stop. Let me tell you about ESIC and what they're doing. ESIC, right? The reason people don't like them is because they took MTG money.
Yes, that's the main reason.
That's the main stumbling block. And so motherfuckers like Face It, who literally they've never moved past, like ESL do a lot of bad things. They're also essential to the fabric of the industry. That's just how you have to live with it. Yep. You either beat them in a fair fight or you don't beat them at all and you live with it.
Yep.
That's it. They won't do it. It's an axis of evil. Richard, do you know what they did this? I know everything. I'm fucking esports Jesus, essentially. Like, there's nothing happens on CS's watch that I don't know about first. I have a fucking spy network that would put fucking Soviet Russia to shame, you mad cunts. Like, so yeah, I do know what they're doing, and I have deemed it to be a necessary evil. I'll live with it. I'm not trying to make money the way you are. I care about the realm. I am the bald fucking eunuch Varus.
You love that fucking reference in that.
Yeah, I did.
Straight fire.
Brilliant, straight fire. I mean, you didn't have to point out I'm a fat bastard, like, but whatever, fair
That
play.
was the price. That was the price.
Yeah, that was the price. The iron price. Exactly. The iron price. So anyway, ESIC took MTG money only on the proviso MTG had no more influence into their organization. Ian literally tried to talk himself out of a job. He said it's got to be a clean break. And they're going, but we're giving money for nothing. And he said it's not for nothing. I then regulate your leagues and deal with all of the cheating and all of the match fixing, and you just agree to abide by our punishments. That'll be fair. I am helping you. It is worth the money. So MTG said yes. And DreamHack and ESL signed up to it, right? And that's it. Great start. Instant credibility, right? No, none of the other leagues or the ESL-hating morons don't want to be ruled by ESIC because they don't trust them. They've done nothing sinister in the scene. Like, they've given out some egregious punishments. I definitely concur with that. They do. And in this instance here, where they were put in an impossible position with the stream sniping. Let me tell you, they got about 5 people. They only could afford to hire a PR guy to do press releases this year, and they are doing match-fixing investigations across 3 continents. They have now found 2 more exploitable bugs that go back years, like the coaching bug in the game that people are using, and they're having to algorithmically find out the best way to detect it. Oh yeah, more coaches are getting banned, guys. You thought it was just 37? Wait and fucking see. And on top of that, they're also doing other investigations into other elements of negative conduct, perhaps even doing other games, not just CS. All of this stuff's going to come out, by the way, but it is going to take time. You think they're not doing anything because they're not tweeting every day about how great they are, like other certain organizations in our space. They are grinding. They are grinding. I'm giving them every bit of information I have. I'm adding to their pile of work, and you know what? They fucking thank me. They care about fixing this scene. They care about catching the cheats. So ESIC were put in this position with this stream sniping instance, which lest we forget Why are you doing it? You're all experienced pros. You're all experienced coaches. You know you shouldn't have that information. You know you shouldn't be watching a stream while you're playing a game and saying, oh, they're definitely money fucked there, or, you know, he's been playing in that position the last 3 rounds. Let's go get him. You shouldn't be doing that. You know that. And here's what happened. When MIBR got caught, the new MIBR at Flashpoint. Well, no, let's go to the first bit. When MIBR got caught, the old MIBR, the ones that are just serial cheats anyway, that triggered a whole line of stuff going on at the Blast where, do you know what was going to happen? ESIC were going to come in and just fucking ban them. And people squealed and snitched like bitches and said, oh, we got proof that this other team did it. And then they went to them and said, we're going to ban you. And they went, well, they're definitely doing it as well. And suddenly ESIC, with all of those other investigations that were going on, and remember, no money, and none of these other leagues want to work with them because they're ESL spies, right? They suddenly were like going, fucking hell, we're going to have to go through every minute of the broadcast footage, find every instance of anyone ever looking at a screen, cross-reference it with information in the game, get the voice comms, then we're going to have to put that into a file, give it to the teams, say we're banning them for a year or whatever it was, and also give them the grounds to appeal. And here's what you all would have co-signed. Here's what you all would have co-signed. Because I saw people on Reddit going, the fact that ESIC won't ban them, what a bloody disgrace. The scene dies if they ban all of the teams at the Blast who were stream sniping. It's dead. They're gone. If they can't go to ESL or DreamHack tournaments, our scene is dead. All your top teams, gone. All the people pushing the viewer numbers now, gone. So you either want the scene to die, right? I don't, not me. Or you have to have a broad, pragmatic view of things. So what they did was, pragmatically, they got all of those teams in a room. They got Blast in the room. And they said, we're not going to make too big a deal about this, but you're all wrong and you're all cunts. We've got too much on our plates.
Amnesty, basically.
Yeah, we'll have an amnesty. And then MIBR replaced their team and went to Flashpoint. And Kogu doesn't know. He's not been a coach. He wasn't around when that drama happened. It's a new roster. So they did it because players will. It's their instinct. Can I get an edge? Can I get away with it? You know, I'm not saying I download hacks. I'm not a vax sucks moron. No, not all pros are cheating just because you can't get out a fucking gold Nova, you rats. But when it comes to anything bar doing something that will be detected or trigger a VAC ban, they are willing to go to that edge. They will use a CVAR that no one knows about. We see the proof of that. We see the proof of that. And that's what happened. So MIBR and Flashpoint, they handled it brilliantly. Flashpoint came out and said, we need to get on top of this. Kogu took it like a man. Dead. There's a lesson for you, mate. He wasn't doing the old shaggy. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. He wasn't doing that, was he? He fucking owned up to it and took a 10 grand fine to the chin and fucking gave it to charity and owned it like a man. Right? And then
I even told him, by the way, that was my suggestion. Like, I wasn't involved with all that, but what I was involved with was, well, what would the punishment be? And I said, that's the punishment. Initially, since if you're going to have to deal with it massively, you're going to have to start banning motherfuckers that should be out of the tournament and no one's going to want a team disqualified. Hit them in the wallet. Make them remember that, like, oh, you get fucking fined money for this. The only shit some of us care about. Yeah, in that scenario, they'll remember it. So I think that, and the angle of you make it go to charity, perfect. Now let's make these cunts doing something wrong be good for the fucking world.
Yeah, and this is the fucking reality, guys. ESIC have then turned around and gone, right, this is it now. You cunts. Why do you keep doing this? And they have laid down the law. Zero tolerance now. Anyone getting caught stream sniping is going to get absolutely fucked and banned from all these tournaments. No more excuses. No more lies. No more squealing and saying, but everyone's doing it. It don't matter if you get caught. So you out there, instead of trying to get me and Duncan for 10-year-old tweets, why don't you fucking be vigilant to the players that don't respect you at all? By the way, because they will cheat and ruin these fucking games and make them meaningless. Oh, it's online. It's COVID. Get those screenshots on Reddit and get these cunts busted the minute they step out of line. That's how we have to roll from now on, because it is zero tolerance.
Any fan who gets the evidence, just put it out there. Put it out there. Tweet at me if you want.
Absolutely. So none of you should be attacking ESIC. ESIC is your friend. ESIC is your friend.
Put me in contact with them, mate. I'll check them over.
Yeah, they are here to help. I mean that. Like, if I'm wrong and I end up in bed with a negative entity that's hurting the esports space, I'll renounce, denounce, apologize. I'm lending my personal reputation, my integrity. I am putting it on the line to tell you ESIC will make our scene better, but they need money, they need help, they need support, they need people like Valve to be elevating them and caring about that and what they're trying to do. Where's Valve, by the way? I thought they were meant to be putting a statement out about those coaching bans. They literally committed to it in writing. Why hasn't it happened yet? Why hasn't it happened yet? It hasn't happened yet because they know you'll forget. They know that it's not important. People are still playing the game casually. That's all that matters. If everyone is cheating online and we've got another 6 months to a year of pandemic life, our scene dies. It goes away. The games are meaningless. The fans will figure it out and they'll leave. And Valorant's going to hit the ground running. And that's it now. We've gone from being the biggest, coolest rockstar esport, and suddenly we're Counter-Strike Source. I was in Source. I don't want to do that again.
Isn't it?
I don't want to be doing 20. We got 24 teams. That's good for 2012. I'm not doing that, guys. Yeah. We've got the best esport in the world right now. We've been on television. Everyone who watches it instantly gets it.
We can still fix it. We can still fix it, but it's going to take a massive turnaround, though. You've got to turn the fucking steamboat at this point in time.
Yeah. So, guys, support ESIC and also call these players out. I just want to, I'm going to end just on this point. We're not doing questions today because we're making this a CSPPA episode, but obviously we'll break down Flashpoint. Next week.
We'll make sure all the patrons get all the ones we missed. We'll catch you up next few weeks.
We're gonna do double questions for you guys next month. You know we look after you. You're gonna get more content, trust me. But here's what I want to say just finally. The people that are now pressurizing tournament organizers, team owners, right now, you have to ask yourself a question. What have these guys done to deserve your loyalty? Your loyalty. Talking to you, the fans. Some of you are stupid, right? You'll blindly follow anyone because you like the way they fucking do shooty, bang, bang. That's fine, guys. That's fine. You're an average fan like that. But some of you aren't that stupid. Some of you can ask yourself a question here. If they're willing to cheat against their own teams and make games like completely meaningless and essentially destroy the fabric of what we all love and what we all come together to support just to get an advantage over a tournament so they end up getting an extra $2,000 or whatever, what does that say about how they feel about you? They don't respect you at all. They care about themselves, and that selfishness might be because of years of neglect I've fought against, by the way. You ask any player, there's not many in the scene that don't follow me, haven't come and reached out to me privately, that I've not gone and fought to get their paper for. And so many other things off the books, looking at contracts down the years, helping them get with teams, meeting managers. I've done it all. Where they're at right now with the CSPPA, their selfish attitude, the constant cheating, the refusal to kind of play ball with everyone else that's really struggling right now in the COVID era. They're on their own little selfish island. It is going to tank everything. It is going to tank everything. And it won't be me and Duncan that suffer. We'll go to Valorant and buy the numbers Valorant edition. We'll have sponsorships and all sorts. We're all right. We're here because we love it. We're here because we love it. You're here because you love it. But you will have nothing to watch and no teams to support if you do not stand up against what is going on right now. That's where we're at, guys. We have got to fucking fix this. It looks like Valve aren't gonna. There's still a chance we can. But you just got to know who the good guys are right now. And unfortunately, they're wearing very sophisticated disguises. And, who the bad guys are now. And they're wearing sophisticated disguises. We don't know what is what. I'm here to tell you what's what. It's going to lose me some friends. It's going to lose Duncan some friends. We burnt a bunch of bridges tonight. Just know one thing. If I'm wrong, I'll own it. If I've harmed esports in any way at any point in my career, I'll own it, and I'll dread that. I've given my entire adult life to building this business, and I'm here now telling you, I think I'm on the right side here, and I want you to stand with me, and let's make Counter-Strike in 2021 a scene that can survive the tests it's going to face. So before we wrap up, I do, unless there's anything you want to add,
Oh,
let me just also say some sad news came through while we were doing the podcast. Poison, the star AWPer for Complexity, is going to miss the next tournament they play at. He's gone in for an emergency surgery for an unspecified illness. Poison's a fantastic talent, and he's a great lad and integral to what Complexity do. I know as an org, they're going to do everything they can to support him. That's Jason Lake's MO. And of course, everyone here at By the Numbers, we're wishing him a speedy recovery. I'm sure everyone else in the chat is get well soon. But that's it. That was the CSPPA Meltdown edition. Maybe it was us having the meltdown. Who knows? One last shout out to the sponsors. NordVPN, you want to get 68% off. You do that by going to nordvpn.com/RLS. If you want to also chip in at the Patreon, it's there on your screen. We only do it for money, really. It's all a lie. And of course, .com, my sponsors, people that enable this content to come at you. Go check them out. .com/RLS. Obviously, as well, all our patrons that give us money, the wonderful individuals that elect to support the show the way that they do. I've got to find the fucking list, Sam. I'm scrolling. I'm out. I don't know. I'm just looking at Moses saying he's got diarrhea. Is that? Am I there? All right, cool. Oh, yeah, excellent. Right, no worries. Moses doesn't have diarrhea. Don't worry about it. He's all right. It was the dog the whole time. Right, shout out to our $100 patrons, Jerky's Minion, Blunt Smoking, Anus Destroyer. Love it when you turn up. Sean Gares, yes, that's the Valorant superstar commentator, Sean Gares. Jade Dubs, Alice the Alchemist, Marcus Kiumpar, Flacksmith, Detlef Insomniac, and our $50 patrons, Rekovic on Steam, Sard Sawar, Benakagi, Watchdodge, Butt Pounder 420, Tobias Bernasconi, Chingu, Miss Alcoholic, Cathal, Echo, hope your dad's feeling better, mate, Rez, Elon, Gaming Paul DK, Quasar Fox, Smart as Superman, Lonnie, Guran, Xdeffel, and Fursock. From me, Duncan, and Sam at By the Numbers. We'll be back sometime next week, and until then, take care of yourselves.